My psycho future mother-in-law tried to fight my fiance in the hallway, all because we were going on vacation to visit my grandparents. Things got so bad that she even called the cops and lied to them, saying that I broke her thumb as she was trying to attack my fiance, putting me in a situation that honestly has me fearing for my life because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that it's been a very long month. My fiance's grandparents both had pretty scary falls in the last month, and we've all been taking turns taking 250-mile trips down to help and visit them, and it's honestly been very stressful. Next month, my fiance and I have a trip planned to go out of the country for a week to see my grandparents, who are older by the way, and I haven't seen them in years due to them being out of the country. The plan was to have my fiance's 17-year-old brother take care of our pets while we were gone, and they both knew about this and agreed to do this. Well, last night, my future mother-in-law realized that if we're out of the country, then they can't take a 3-day trip to visit my mother-in-law's parents. And according to my mother-in-law, leaving the kid brother by himself for 3 days is a hard no. So she announced that she was going to board the dogs. My fiance took exception to this because our older dog is terrified of everyone outside the household, and our younger dog is really bad at reading aggressive body language and will actively try to play with dogs that would tear her apart. This started an argument between my fiance and mother-in-law, where my mother-in-law accused my fiance of not caring about her own grandparents. Things got really heated, but I convinced my fiance to retreat with me into our room. Things seemed to cool down for a bit, but when I ran downstairs to grab my fiance's Nintendo Switch, just so we could hide out at my apartment, my mother-in-law was still ranting, saying that she wished she never had my fiance, how she was mad at the kid brother for attempting to bail from the argument, and accused him of siding with them, and was saying some of the most unhinged stuff imaginable. I tried to gently defend my fiance, because frankly, she's put her whole life on hold for a decade to support her mom and brother, but she just kept yelling, "Your fiance is not my daughter." Eventually, my fiance got sick of hearing things and started yelling back at her mom. My mother-in-law called her the B word, my fiance returned the sentiment, and at this point, my mother-in-law yelled that I should control my stupid B word because my mother-in-law is going to punch her in her stupid face. My mother-in-law went back to her room still yelling, with my fiance yelling right back at her. I tried to convince my mother-in-law that my fiance and I had been hiding for almost an hour while she was still ranting and that we weren't the ones pushing the argument. Eventually, she snapped and yelled, "I'm gonna get that idiot," and attempted to sprint past me down the hallway. I interceded and I stood between her and my fiance. My mother-in-law pushed and shoved and tried to squeeze past in the hallway, and she nearly made it too, but I picked her up and I put her down on the other side of me. She then announced that she was going to call 911, which I invited since no violence occurred. So she called the cops and yelled at the operator on speakerphone, demanding that someone get out there because her daughter was verbally mistreating her, and it's here that we could hear the operator was getting frustrated with her. Eventually she hung up, and minutes later the cops showed up. Now thankfully I knew one of them from work, and I explained everything that I typed out above. My mother-in-law talked to his partner outside, and apparently my fiance, who was hiding under her bed, was watching on the Ring camera and watched her mom straight up lie to the cops. They advised us that since no one was injured, even though my mother-in-law claimed that I broke her thumb, which definitely didn't happen, he said that we should try to avoid each other and let things settle. After they left, my fiance and I hid in our room, while my mother-in-law texted her about how I'm an evil danger to the whole family, because apparently yesterday I broke her thumb, and now she's texting my fiance saying that I beat her up in the hallway, which definitely didn't happen. But truly, I'm so heartbroken over this entire thing. I've been with my fiance since high school. I clean the house, I do all the chores. I mean, I'm the designated driver. I fix the cars, I fix the computers. I help the little brother with his homework. I've given so much of myself to this whole family. I help the mother-in-law with her extremely evil ex as well. They even frequently comment that I'm too nice because I always stop to help anyone if I'm in a position to help out. But apparently now to my mother-in-law, I'm an evil jerk who's unsafe to be around, all because I wouldn't let her hit her daughter. I mean, honestly, my life is so messed up right now. My fiance says that I should have just let her mom punch her in the face because then she says we could just go back to everything being normal. Okay, holy crap, you guys have a weird definition of normal. This is not normal. Nothing about this interaction was normal at all. Your mother-in-law literally tried to fight your fiance all because you guys were trying to go out of the country to visit your grandparents. Like, holy crap, imagine being that crazy and that hot-headed that you blow up over something like that. Like, seriously, that is crazy. That's absolutely crazy in my opinion. So for me, I know for a fact if I was in this situation and I lived under these settings, I would be moving out so fast it's not even funny. I'm talking like tonight I'd pack it up and I'd get out. I would put stuff in a storage container and figure it out from there. Because look at the escalation of things, dude. This lady's a narcissist. She literally tried to be like, "You broke my thumb." And now she's like, "Oh, he beat me up in the hallway." Like, she's clearly capable of making things up just to try and ruin your life. Who knows what else she's gonna claim in the future? Like, holy crap. So yeah, I would be getting away from this lady as fast as possible because she sounds like a complete psychopath. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My serving job was one of the most toxic environments I've ever worked in my entire life, as my manager and trainers were constantly saying terrible things about me behind my back, while also refusing to train me properly. And I am so glad I got out of that place because it was an absolute nightmare. Here's what happened. Okay, so I worked as a server at a retirement home about a year ago, and I've got to be honest, I really hated it. After the third day training period, I found it was terrible that anytime I tried asking a question, from the other coworker who trained me, they would always get mad at me and be like, I already showed you that. It was complete garbage how anytime I wanted to ask a question about anything, they'd get mad and think that I wasn't listening or just refuse to do any work. And when I tried to tell another coworker 3 weeks in about what another coworker was saying about me behind my back, he said he thought that what they said was valid as he believed I wasn't taking enough initiative. He said that he would leave tasks unfinished to see if I would do them, and I thought that was annoying as I wasn't even sure what the task was that he was talking about. And at that point, it felt annoying that I wasn't getting enough communication on what jobs they wanted me to do. I asked for a checklist of what to do. I tried to follow everything that he wrote down, and it still felt like there wasn't much else to do. Even when others would mess up a task or got things wrong, I never called them out on it, and I would just fix things myself. I would ask them all the time. Whenever it felt like there was nothing to do, I would say, okay, what else needs to be done? And most of the time, they'd answer and then tell me what to do. I also didn't know what else I could do to try and make things right. I mean, I'd try to follow whatever was written down by my coworker, or I would just ask what else there was left to do, but it never felt like enough. It always felt like they changed things every week about what we needed to do, and I felt like I could never keep up. I eventually left that job after a few months, and when I was looking at other jobs a few months ago, I saw that they had another posting online. In this one, they upped the requirements where they wanted 6 months of experience in dining, but I've truly never been to a place where the working environment felt so toxic and stupid than the time I was a server working with these idiots. Okay, honestly, I resonate with this so much it's not even funny. Like, I've had coworkers like this who are like, oh, you're not doing enough. You're not doing your job. And it's like, okay, what is my job? Like, literally show me what I need to do and I'll get it done. And then they literally list off all the things that you've already done, and yet they still have the gall to be like, oh, you're not doing enough. Not to mention them talking about you behind your back. Like, that drives me insane. Like, seriously, dude, if you got something to say, just say it to me. We can hash it out, we can figure it out, and probably find some kind of common ground. But don't say stuff behind my back as if I've done anything to you, because chances are I probably haven't. So yeah, this entire situation kind of rings true, and I've definitely experienced this, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Am I overreacting for refusing to host my sister's bridal shower after she said that mine was tacky and has constantly made nasty comments about it even 2 years later? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so when I got married 2 years ago, my sister made it clear that she didn't love the theme I picked for my bridal shower. And for reference, it was like cozy cottage themed. Think stuff like florals, mismatched teacups, and homemade desserts. Now, she called it Pinterest vomit, but I just kind of brushed it off. She got engaged this summer and is having her bridal shower next month. Well, last week she asked if I could host it, stating that this would be payback for the one that I had. And I said sure until she sent me a full PowerPoint on her vision. It would be black and gold, there'd be a champagne tower, there would be no finger food, there would be a DJ, and then a minimum dress code. Her list of what not to do literally started with no tacky teacups or budget-looking decor. I then told her that if she felt that my shower was that bad, then maybe she should have someone else host hers. She then accused me of being bitter and said that I was ruining her chance to have a classy event. But I straight up told her I'm not doing it, and now my mom is saying that I'm reigniting sibling drama for no reason. Now, I genuinely don't think I overreacted. I just don't want to spend thousands to host something for someone who mocked my own day. But part of me also wonders if I'm being petty, because right now I literally don't know what to do. Okay, I think your sister's being very petty and so weird. Like, literally, she could have been like, okay, this is what I want for my bridal shower. But instead, she's almost punishing you for having one that she didn't like. Like, seriously, get a grip. And this was 2 years ago, mind you. She is still holding on to this and has some kind of weird grudge about it. Like, that honestly doesn't make any sense to me, and that is so toxic. So no, you're not overreacting. I also would never want to host this in a million years, especially if they're going to insult me like that, because that is absolutely unacceptable. An entitled Karen screamed at me for staying in in a disabled spot despite the fact that I literally had a parking permit for it, as she refused to listen to anything I was saying and instead demanded that I move my car. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I'm 25 years old, I'm disabled, and I have a valid disabled parking permit. I also drive an older BMW, and it is a nice one in my opinion. After my physiotherapy appointment, I walked back to my car, which yes, I parked in a disabled parking spot. I got in and spent a few minutes on my phone before heading home, just taking a short breath, which is something I always do after physiotherapy. The parking lot was nearly empty, and next to me were 3 regular open spots, and across from me was another empty disabled spot with 2 free spaces beside it. Oh, and by the way, it's a free parking area. Well, suddenly this woman who's somewhere in her mid-60s drives up. She stares at me for a few seconds, and then she parks her car, with half of it almost crisscross across the disabled spot opposite of me. She then gets out, walks straight up to my window, and says to me, "Why are you taking up a disabled spot? You've been sitting here playing games for 15 minutes, and I want to park here." And honestly, I was a bit surprised by this. So I said to her, "I'm allowed to park here. I was just doing something on my phone. I was about to leave." Now, before I could even finish my sentence and get anything out, she cuts me off and says, "You don't need to justify yourself." And yet she keeps going, telling me it's rude for me to sit there and that I should move over because she can't park her car anywhere else because it's too long. Now, this Karen came off a bit rude, and I tried to stay polite, but I could feel the frustration creeping in. But unfortunately, this kind of thing happens sometimes. Someone sees a young guy in a car and immediately assumes he's mistreating a disabled spot. No one ever sees why that blue card is there in the first place. Eventually, she walked away mid-sentence, and I honestly was a bit confused. I wasn't blocking anyone. I had a valid permit, and I was planning to leave. So seriously, was I being rude or was I the jerk? What should I do? No, you didn't do anything wrong, and I bet I know exactly why she walked off all of a sudden. She probably walked up and was completely excited to yell at you about parking there. Like this was her moment to get that justice she wanted, but then when she walked up and saw the tag, she was like, "Oh crap, how do I get out of this?" I'm not justifying her behavior, don't get me wrong, I think she's a complete moron for doing that, but I guarantee you she felt like an idiot the second she saw that placard hanging from your mirror, and then she just straight up walked away mid-sentence because she didn't know what else to do. So no, of course you didn't do anything wrong. This lady was an idiot for approaching you in the first place, and I honestly can't stand people like that. My entitled friend demands that I check with her before I invite anyone to our barbecue that we're trying to plan, as she really feels the need to monitor who comes and goes from my house. Here's what's going on. For a bit of context, my friend and I have been friends for a little over a year, and for the sake of the story, I'll call this friend Rose. We met at work, and after I moved to another job, we stayed pretty close. Our partners also get along really well. We've gone on a few double dates, and I've met her friend group and made an effort to get to know everybody. Last week, I hosted a small birthday gathering at my place, and Rose and her partner came, along with my best friend who I'll call Jackie, who also knows Rose because they work at the same company even though they're at different teams. During my birthday, Rose brought up the idea of having a barbecue at my place the following weekend before she and her partner went on holiday, to which I agreed. A few days later, I was chatting with Jackie and I thought it would be nice to invite her and her partner too. Since Rose mentioned the barbecue in front of her, I figured that it would be fine. I then texted Rose by saying, "Hey, just so you know, Jackie and her partner are also joining us too." Well, much to my surprise, she didn't take it well. She replied by saying, "Oh, is there no more double dates between you and me? It's okay that you invited her now, but next time double check with me first." I then responded back by saying, "Oh, sorry, I guess I misread the whole thing. Since it was mentioned in front of her, I thought it would be fine." Now, later on, I had to move the barbecue to another day because I was still catching up with some other friends and family for my birthday. And with that, Rose reluctantly agreed to change. I told Jackie she could come around on the original date, but also mentioned about the new date, and she said she'd still love to come even if it was moved. Well, before confirming with Jackie, I texted Rose again. I said to her, "Hey, I hope it's okay that Jackie and her partner will still join us on Sunday since she prefers a kids-free day." Well, Rose immediately called me, sounding condescending, asking if I didn't get her message. She said the only reason she agreed to change the date was because she thought it would just be the 4 of us, and that I wasn't getting the point, that I should have asked her before inviting anyone else. Now, at this point, it's honestly exhausting. It's my house, and I've been at her place plenty of times when she's had someone else there. I never thought to ask who would or wouldn't be coming, let alone tell her that she should check with me before inviting other people. So I sent her the following message. I said to her, "I feel like this has become too difficult. I assumed wrong that you'd be okay with Jackie coming since you both know each other, and that was honestly my mistake. But I don't want to lie to Jackie since she already knows about the barbecue, and I also don't want to say you prefer she didn't come because I'm not trying to create drama." She then responded back by saying, "It's okay. My husband said let's forget about Sunday, and the 4 of us can catch up for dinner after our holiday. We just wanted to do dinner with you before we go away. You can can still do Sunny with Jackie and her partner. I'll tell her I'm busy packing, so it won't be an issue. Now, I haven't replied yet because I don't want to say something impulsive, but I honestly just wanted to host a chill barbecue with people who all know each other. But now it's turned into this weird drama, and I'm left wondering if I really did something wrong by inviting someone to a gathering at my own house. So am I the jerk for inviting my friend to my place without checking first? Because at this point, I just don't know what to do. Okay, I've got to be honest, and I think you said this best. Rose sounds exhausting. Who in their right mind thinks they can dictate who can and cannot come to someone else's house? Like, that is so stupid, dude. What are you doing? If you're gonna mention plans in front of other people, you can't possibly expect them not to come along with it, especially if you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this and it's gonna be great. Because if you do it that way, you're basically saying, oh, we're gonna have a great time, but no, of course you're not invited. Like, that's obnoxious, and I just don't understand how someone could act like that and then be like, oh yeah, they can't come to this party that you're hosting at your house. Like, at that point, if I was in your shoes, I'd be like, okay, we're just not going to do anything then. This is clearly causing problems for them, and I just would not want to deal with that. So no, you didn't overreact because I think your friend's being very stupid. Today, I exposed the fact that my girlfriend lied to me about what she was doing at work because I uncovered the fact that she actually went on a date with a guy instead of actually doing her job as a real estate agent. And right now, I am so devastated that I actually ended my relationship right then and there with her. And at this point, I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've been with my girlfriend for about 3 years now in what was a pretty much classic exclusive relationship. We were living in a big city, and very recently we moved into her province of origin. When we were moving, she picked up a new job as a real estate agent. I work from home and I'm there pretty much all day, and she also gets to work from home unless she has some property visits that she needs to take care of. Well, to cut to the chase, now that the setting is set, a couple of days ago she tells me that she's got a visit and leaves the house at like 3:45 p.m. I finish my day of work at about 5 o'clock, I leave for the gym, I train for about 2 hours, and then I come back at around 7:30 p.m. But when I get home, there's still no girlfriend to be found. I don't think much of it. I mean, I just shower, I start prepping my food, and then finally, a bit before 8 p.m., she shows up. Now, at this point, I'm still a bit curious. So I ask her where she's at, and mind you, I'm not thinking much of it. The clients were a couple and didn't like the first house, so they visited another one and then another one after that, and then she got home. And here's the thing, at this point, I'm still not really suspecting a big thing is happening, but even still, I start to find things weird. Like, I visited houses and I know how long it takes, and 3 visits certainly do not take 4 hours. So I keep poking simply out of curiosity. And after some time and some more poking, at some point they, meaning the couple, quickly became he, meaning a singular person. And at this point, my spider sense goes off. I keep poking at her story, and the more I poke, the more she contradicts herself. And it's here that I know something's up. The discussion goes on, and she obviously is out of options, but still refuses to do the big reveal. I then get tired and I just say that I'll go to bed and that we'll pick it up the next morning. But no, I can't get to bed. I literally can't stop thinking about it. So I go back down and I corner her, metaphorically of course, and I verbally start to ramp things up with intensity and basically leave her no choice. And when she refuses, the intensity goes up another notch. And then at the very last second, when literally it was give me something or get out, she then timidly admits that they ate and went to dinner together, which she now maintains tooth and nail wasn't a date. Well, she's been an agent for 2 weeks, and because of this, I broke up the relationship right then and there. So am I overreacting in this situation? Because right now I'm honestly so heartbroken. Dude, your girlfriend absolutely went on a date with this guy. I don't care what she says. That is some crazy stuff if you ask me. Like, think about it. The second she lied about this and said, oh, it wasn't a couple, but it was a guy. Like, that's the biggest indication that, yes, something's off here. Like, I'm even suspecting the fact that she even did anything work-related. Like, who's to say she didn't spend the entire day with this guy and work had nothing to do with it? So no, you're not overreacting. This absolutely was a date, and this is incredibly heartbreaking. Because you guys literally moved together. Like, this is crazy. And back to her province of origin, which is probably why she was able to get a date so quickly. So in my opinion, I think you're completely justified because this is unacceptable. Today, I walked out on my friend moving apartments after she asked me to show up and help out, only to then sit on the ground and drink wine and basically watch me do everything. Because after I walked out and refused to help her out, she's now not talked to me, and I'm honestly not sure if I made a mistake. Because this entire scenario is incredibly bizarre. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my friend, who I will call Lena, is 28 years old and asked me to help her move apartments last weekend. I showed up on time with boxes, tape, I mean literally the whole thing. But when I got there, she and 2 of her friends were sitting on the floor drinking drinking wine and chatting. Like there was nothing packed, literally nothing. I asked if she wanted me to start in the kitchen, and she said to me, yeah, maybe after we finish this bottle. And I thought she was joking, but no. They kept drinking and talking while I started packing alone. After about 2 hours of doing everything myself, I said I had to go because I had plans that evening. She then looked offended and said to me, wow, I thought you were gonna help me move, not ditch me halfway through. I then told her, Lena, you haven't even started packing. I can't do it all by myself. And when I said this, she just rolled her eyes and said I was being dramatic. Well, needless to say, I left anyways, and now she hasn't talked to me ever since. So am I at fault here? Because right now I don't know how to fix this situation. Holy crap, people like this exist. This is crazy to me. First of all, if you're gonna invite someone over and be like, hey, can you help me move? At least have the common decency of packing things up and having something started. You don't just sit on the floor with your friend and be like, we're gonna drink wine and then we're gonna move stuff. Because that is like the least productive thing you could possibly do in that situation, dude. What Lena thought in her head is like, oh yeah, the original poster, they're gonna do this all for us, which means we can sit by and drink wine all day. Let's watch her work. This will be great. Like, no, you gotta get up and do some work, Lena. You can't just sit there and think I'm gonna do it. Oh, and by the way, the original poster has way more patience than I do. They dealt with this for 2 hours, bro. 2 hours of their life, they watched their friends sit on the ground getting wasted drinking wine instead of standing up and like actually doing something to help out. Because I'm telling you right now, after like 30 minutes tops, I would be like, yeah, I'm gonna leave. This is a waste of my time. And I just love the fact that Lena's trying to be like, wow, you're ditching me. How dare you? And she probably said this sloshed out of her mind with a wine bottle still in hand. Like, dude, are you kidding me right now? So no, you are not overreacting. You absolutely did the right thing here because Lena in this story is super entitled and very lazy. My entitled sister intentionally gets pregnant just so she can get back on the family will, as well as get back in my life and my parents' life. Here's what happened. So this story is an update to a previous story we had on the channel, where the original poster's sister got convicted of a crime and was nearly forced by their mother to try and fall on this crime. But thankfully, they didn't give in to the weird demands of the sister and the mom, and as a result, the sister got in trouble and the original poster got off scot-free, as they should. Here's an update to what happened next. My sister sank to a new low of manipulation with this one. A couple of months ago, she suddenly showed up at our parents' house with a boyfriend in tow and a positive pregnancy test, and saying that she was 2 months along. She claimed that she wanted to make amends so her child would be able to know their grandparents. Now, I saw this for what it was from the start. My sister went out of her way to get pregnant so dad would put her back in the will, and mom would have to make her the golden child again. Yeah, I know, crazy stuff all around to catch up on. But things didn't go down that way in the slightest. It was February when my sister showed up all of the sudden. She had taken a leave from work to come see us. She even tried to act all smiles around me, but I could still see the hate in her eyes. We were definitely not on good terms. She still blamed me, and she never stopped blaming me for her problems. But she pretended that she'd seen the error of her ways. My mom seemed to buy her act, but my dad didn't at all. Though my parents having a grandchild is something that they've been longing for, so they begrudgingly accepted my sister back for this moment, but not without making sure whether or not this was some kind of con. And spoiler alert, it definitely was. My dad suggested that my sister should take another pregnancy test just to confirm, and he requested that simply because this is how my sister is. She really is that weird. We expected her to protest, but she took the one my dad got and willingly used it, and it was positive, so she was indeed very pregnant. My parents asked for some time alone with my sister, so I went home and I didn't see them again until the next day's evening. And it was then that I got the details from my parents. The evening before, they'd had a long talk with my sister about all the things that she's done, and told her that they will help support their grandchild and set up a college fund for them. But if my sister wanted a place back in the family, then she's going to have to work hard for it and prove that she's changed. Because it was obvious with the timing of the pregnancy that she only got pregnant to try and get back in the family's good graces. She denied this, of course, but her past actions spoke for themselves. Our parents wanted her to seek therapy, both individual and group with them over video calls. And they also wanted her to apologize to me for what she did years ago, since she always refused to do it. And that's when she finally broke and said that I don't deserve an apology, because I'm the reason she got her life ruined to begin with. Well, when my dad heard that, he didn't let that slide lied in the slightest and practically started shouting at her. And then he told her that she was never grateful for anything they did for her and that she was only blaming me so she wouldn't have to take fault for her own actions. My mom chimed in and said that she had to realize her own past actions were wrong, like when she tried to force me to take the blame for my sister back then so her baby wouldn't get in trouble, and how she'd said those horrible things to me when I refused. And if she could genuinely admit her wrongs, my sister could too. Well, my sister flipped out and left with her boyfriend. The few times I met the guy, I could tell he was only with my sister for the money because she treated him like absolute garbage. She even elbowed him in the stomach once right in front of me. Anyway, my sister came back the next day with a long rehearsed apology for them, with crocodile tears included. And again, the only reason our parents let her back in was because of her pregnancy. She was set up back in her old room and spent the next few days trying to act all smiles. But her act was pretty bad. She was still expected to give me that long overdue apology, and I even met up with her and her boyfriend at a local restaurant our parents picked out. We figured if she was going to give me anything even remotely genuine as an apology, it couldn't be around our parents. She started off the apology by basically murmuring, and when my boyfriend wanted her to speak up, that's when she elbowed him in the stomach, and she did it really hard too. He asked to be excused and left us one-on-one. As soon as he was gone, my sister started what's more of a non-apology, basically saying that she was sorry for what happened with trying to frame me, but also said that it still would have never happened if I had just gone with it that day and gotten the alcohol for the party, and then we could have both had a great time. I countered that she still didn't get it. She straight up framed me, and when the cops were called on her, it had nothing to do with me. So if I had helped out that day, then I would have been arrested and charged too. I got up and said she still hasn't changed. She only lives in her little self-important world, and then I just walked out. When our parents learned of this, my sister tried to deny the word that she'd spoken to me, but my dad knows the owner of that restaurant. We were seated away from the other noisy guests, and we were put right below a CCTV camera with audio, and it caught everything. And my parents had the video within hours from the restaurant owner. They played it in front of my sister and told her this is exactly why she's not getting much in her will. Her child might be, but not her. That's when she threw a tantrum and walked out screaming at them. And this time she did not come back. She got in her car and drove all the way back to LA without another word to any of us. She later called to say her boyfriend had left her and she didn't know where he was. As I thought, he was clearly in it for the money, and when their con failed, he cut her loose. So now my sister is around 4 months pregnant with her baby daddy pulling a runner. She is still sending our parents updates on the pregnancy, and my parents are having a very hard time dealing with the fact that their future grandchild is basically being used as an attempted bargaining chip for my sister to worm her way back in. So it really is sad that she left my mother heartbroken all over again, our father beyond disappointed, as well as tried to make me the mental scapegoat simply because she can't admit her own faults. She hasn't changed a bit, and I really don't think she ever will. What a crazy update to this story. For context, the sister in this story that was kind of estranged and came back as pregnant and trying to get back in the will of the family is someone who tried to blame their other sister, who is the original poster, of a crime that they did not commit. Like, it really is crazy, and it's something we covered previously on the channel. So the fact that she would come back into everybody's life and basically be like, hey, I'm pregnant. Can I please be back in the family? I'll be the favorite again. Like, that is honestly insane to me. So good for the family as well as the original poster for all basically coming together and saying, no, you are full of it and we see through all of your lies. And I honestly don't blame the dad for being like, oh, okay, you're pregnant? Yeah, do another pregnancy test. Based on the way this person is described, it kind of adds up that they would have to do this. This really is a messed up situation, and hopefully for the sake of everybody in that family, it all works out in the end, because otherwise there's just going to be more drama and more problems. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked down below in the description. My partner has been spending a little bit too much time with someone from her work and has recently gone over to his house without telling me in the first place. And this is all so very confusing, and I seriously don't know what to do. So first, for a bit of context, I will try and keep this as concise as possible. Years ago, my partner cheated on me. I felt like something was going on in my gut with her roommate, and after weeks, she said nothing. I finally confronted her, and she admitted that they had been together once. But after asking her to show me her phone, it was pretty apparent that it was happening several times times over a period of time. They were practically dating, and that turned into a whole situation where I left the relationship. During this period, they sought mental help and got diagnosed with a mental health condition. They started to go to therapy and take medication, and generally got a little bit healthier. After a year, we ended up getting back in touch, and she had really matured. All of the steps that she had taken seemed to have really been huge for her. She is my best friend, I love her, and I decided that I would be willing to start seeing her again under the condition that she never lied to me again. And also she needs to continue therapy and continue taking her medication. Fast forward 4 years and things have been great. I've been working out issues that I have with betrayal as well as trust issues, and of course it's been very difficult, but she has been generally very understanding and at least willing to work at it. Over this time period though, she started feeling that her medication was dulling her, so she decided she would stop taking her meds. She told me that she talked to her doctor about this, and this is what they decided on together, and she stopped going to therapy. Right at this time, we had made the decision to find a place and move in together. Fast forward to this year, and generally speaking, things have been completely up and down on a roughly 3-month cycle with our relationship. I've only just now started to recognize the patterns, but how we are doing seems to go from either the best it's ever been to completely disconnected. So with that bit of context in mind, this is my conundrum, and I'm honestly really trying hard to keep my hands on the keyboard as I type this, so maybe this part won't be so long. Now, there's also someone else in the picture that my partner works with, who we will call John. That's not their real name. Over the past year, my partner and John have gotten close. It went from John being someone that they thought was cool and they liked joking around with at work, to someone that they said they mutually told each other that they could see themselves being very close and spending time with each other outside of work. Once it got to that point, my partner totally stopped communicating to me about John. This was about 6 months ago as well. It's as if John no longer existed, but when my partner would invite me to work social events, her and John would be very close. John used to say hello to me and we would talk, but now John doesn't make eye contact with me anymore, let alone speak to me, even when I try to. At one of the recent events, there was a lot of drinking going on. My partner and John would be very close and touchy-feely with each other, and when I would come over, John would immediately leave. But I noticed that when I would leave my partner, all of a sudden John would come back. They have started saying I love you to each other, which I guess friends can say, but I usually reserve that for my relationships, my family, or really close friends. And the way they say I love you to one another has changed to this soft and subtle tone. One night, sitting on the couch, I saw a message notification from John. They were sharing pictures back and forth, and my partner replied with a message saying, "So you were even attractive with long hair too." Finally, after the most recent work social event, I asked my partner if anything was happening between her and John. Her response was no way. John has a long-term partner. Then, a few days later, my partner got upset at me for thinking that there could be anything going on between them. Now, my partner has been staying at work late or hanging out with friends after work almost every other day the past 2 weeks, which isn't a big deal. I totally get that. But after the third time, I felt like this behavior is odd for my partner, because with their line of work, they typically want to get home and shower because they are exhausted after work. So she called me at lunch asking what I thought we should do for dinner, and I said I would go to the store and pick up something to cook, and she said that she'd see me after work. Well, after I got home, and about an hour before she gets off, she texted me saying she was going to hang out with some friends after work. I said, okay, I guess that sounds good, and I decided I would wait and run to the store a little bit later to avoid rush hour traffic. I headed to the grocery store at around 7 o'clock p.m., which is an hour after my partner usually gets off work. While I was out, I decided I would drive past John's house. Well, out in front of John's house was my partner's car. I went back home, made dinner, and did some work while I waited for my partner. 9:30 p.m. rolled around, and I was still waiting, and I was feeling a lot of anxiety. So I got in my car and I went for a drive, as it usually helps me calm down. When I came in, she asked how I was. I said I was fine and went out for a drive. I then asked her how her day was, and she said it was just all right. I asked her how the hangout was after work, and she said it was good, and that they went to a happy hour at some Mexican place near her job. I said, that's nice. And then I asked her if that was it, if that's all that she got into, or if she decided to go anywhere else. And she said yes, everyone just lost track of time. I then said that's really nice that it seemed they all had a good time, and I know that she had been hoping that the work crew would invite her out for a few months now, and that I'm glad it finally happened. She said, yep, she was glad it happened too. After that, I went to bed. I finally had something planned for us to go talk to someone, but obviously that has changed now, as I need to handle this first because I don't want her to feel ambushed in any type of session we may have. I don't know why she was at John's house, and I don't know what they could have been doing, but I do know that she lied to me, and I gave her a couple of outs to just say something about John's house, and now I'm confused, and I don't know why you would lie about that, especially with our history, and I just don't know how to have a calm conversation about it without her blowing up and getting angry and defensive, when like I just want to live my life, and I'm tired, and I just want to know the truth and communicate, and now I have to live with this implication that I've been feeling gaslit for the past 6 months, and my gut has been going crazy, and all of that might be valid. How should I handle this with my partner? How do I have a conversation about this? What should I do? This definitely is a sketchy situation. She's not being honest with you about John, most likely because she knows that you will get upset. There's a very high likelihood that something's going on between the two of them. They're saying that they love each other, and she lied about being at his house. That is a big red flag in my opinion. So this is definitely a conversation you need to have, because otherwise who knows what's going on? And I think you have every right to know exactly what's happening between the two of them, because based on what you've described, this does not sound like a normal relationship. And if anything, I think there might be something more going on. A woman I met long distance over a dating app turns out to be not my type physically, and now I don't know how to break the news to her that I am not actually interested in her and I don't want to continue dating. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of context, I matched with this girl on a dating app 3 to 4 months back, and we immediately hit it off. We could talk about anything and everything under the sun. She's insanely intelligent, she's really funny, mature, loving, and an all-around amazing person. We would text and talk every single day, and hours upon hours would go by, and we wouldn't notice at all. We became an inherent part of each other's lives, texting and calling at work, at home, while sleeping, morning calls, you name it. We are both looking for a serious relationship, which would lead to marriage, and after a long while, I found someone I connected with on every level. It felt so amazing that we even talked about getting engaged and talking to each other's parents in a few months' time. She would ask me to send my pictures on Snapchat, with and without filters, but she would send them very sparsely, and usually would send them with filters on or with a side face. We decided to meet in a city together and spend time with each other, and this is when the problem started. The woman I thought I was going to spend my life with, I am just not physically attracted to. She's everything a guy would want, but I just can't get past some of her looks. Now don't get me wrong, she is fit and she has an amazing body, but it's just not for me. I mean, I kept comparing her looks to other women on the street, and I know I'm a horrible person, but it's been giving me sleepless nights. She keeps saying I love you and spending our lives together. She even doubled her efforts because I think she's onto the fact that I'm not feeling it. I just can't bring myself to tell her that I love her when I can't feel it. I really just cannot fake it. I really do not want to hurt her, and telling her that I am not attracted to her after all we have done would be an absolute horrible move. She deserves way better than that. How am I supposed to deal with this situation? What should I do? I think you need to be honest with this lady. She deserves to know that, you know what, this is just not working out. For you to lead her on and be like, yeah, let's keep on going with this, that would be awful. She doesn't deserve that. You already met her in person and you know for a fact, sorry, I just don't like you like that. And sometimes looks do make a difference. What would be somebody's dream girl for you is clearly just not something you're interested in. And that is really unfortunate because it sounds like you two had a really good future ahead of you, but it's clearly not clicking. So honestly, I would break it off sooner than later. She deserves to know the truth, and I honestly don't think you should lead her on in the slightest. My girlfriend of 2 years wants to take a break with me, where she can do whatever she wants with other men while she's away on this break. But now she's telling me that we have a 50-50 chance of getting back together again. And I'm so confused and I feel so hurt over what she's saying that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I have been dating for 2+ years and everything has been fine. But as of last night, we got into a small argument, and that led her to the conclusion that she wants space and wants to take a break for a month. I told her I understand and that I respect that, as maybe some space would be good for us. But then she mentions that during this break, it doesn't matter if she does any other scandalous stuff with other men, if you know what I mean, as it will all mean nothing and she still loves me. Now, this just raised a bunch of flags in my brain, because why would you even mention mention that to me? And on top of that, why, if you love me, would you do that in the first place? I then told her that taking a break just feels like stepping stones that leads to the end of a relationship. But she says she still loves me and wants to be with me, but just needs a month break from me. So that means no texting or calling or seeing each other. It's just all so confusing to me because it feels like she just doesn't want to be with me in that way. She always keeps mentioning all the scandalous stuff and how it won't mean anything to her, especially if she does it with someone else during this month, claiming that because she still loves me, it's okay. But that seriously bothers me so much, I just don't know if I'm overreacting over this. It feels like she's dumping me with a string attached to yank me back in whenever she wants, and I honestly feel like it's not fair. I told her a month just feels too long for me, and I would want an answer sooner so I don't have to wait a month with a false sense of hope for it to all come crashing down and end up heartbroken all over again. What should I do? So basically, your girlfriend wants to be able to cheat on you with permission. Her saying, oh, let's take a month off so I can mess around with other guys, which by the way, I still love you, is literally just a hall pass for her to go mess around. Like she's literally saying, hey, I want to break up for a month so I can sleep around with other guys. Is that okay? And naturally, your response is to be like, wait a second, what is happening here? Like it really sounds like your girlfriend is not loyal. She clearly wants to break up to spend time with some guy you don't know about, and it's obviously going to be at your expense. Like seriously, this is unbelievably toxic. And I know if I was in your shoes and my girlfriend was saying this kind of stuff, I would start the process of grieving the loss of my relationship sooner than later. Like this is really bad. This is really like the end of your relationship potentially. Also, it's important to note that she is straight up playing games. She is literally stringing you along by saying, well, maybe we'll get back together. That is absolute nonsense. Do not fall for that. You shouldn't take that at face value because you know what? She's probably not going to get back with you. Fast forward a month and I guarantee you she's going to be like, oh, I found another guy. I'm going to go with him. Or some other garbage might come up. So hopefully you're able to make the right decision in this situation and maintain some kind of happiness in your life. Because based on what you're describing, your girlfriend is about to do something pretty stupid. And if you're not careful, you're going to be caught emotionally in the crossfire. An entitled Karen gets in my face and starts screaming at me, simply because she doesn't know where her item is that she's trying to buy. And after screaming at me for several minutes, this entitled Karen demands that I do my job. So as a result, I decide to maliciously comply, and I get revenge in the best way possible. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I work in an online fulfillment center, and this is at a large home, garden, and building supply store. I think you can use your imagination as to what it is. My job title will come into play later, as technically we aren't supposed to work with customers directly, just point them in the direction they're supposed to go, or find another associate who works in that department. I had a massive order to grab, several heavy and large pieces of sheet metal and screws. The problem is that the metal sheet size I need isn't where it's meant to be, so I'm having to scan pretty much everything to figure out what's what. But you know what the bigger problem is? This lingering in the wild sadly put me in the range of a wild Karen attack. And that's when this entitled Karen came storming up in a harpy voice. She looked at me and said, "Are you gonna help me or not?" I looked around, suddenly very confused. I looked at her, especially as she hadn't spoken to me at all. This entitled Karen looks at me incredibly annoyed, and she says to me, "Well, I've been standing over there forever, and you haven't offered to help me at all." Still trying to get my bearings, I look at her and I say, "Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. I can try. I don't work in this department, so it will really depend on what you're looking for." Now, when I said this entitled Karen suddenly gets incredibly hostile. She looks at me and says, "Try? You're gonna try to help me? No, you will help me. It doesn't matter if you work in this department or not." Now, at this point, I'm trying to calm myself down and take some deep breaths, just so I don't lash out and say something I will regret. Also, I'm just wondering what this lady's problem is. I look at her and I say, "Okay, what do you need?" And I was definitely unable to control the annoyance in my tone as this entitled Karen just kept yelling at me. She looks at me and says, "I need this." And she suddenly pulls out a screw and nearly stabs me in the eye by shoving it forward. Now, when she did this, I definitely pushed her hand away, and I was feeling much less calm as I have PTSD related to people putting hands in my face, much less a screw. Now, at this point, I'm visibly shaking. I say to her, "Okay, ma'am, screws are at the end of the aisle on the left." But the entitled Karen wasn't having that. She screamed at me, "I already know that." So I respond back in a not so nice tone, "Okay, what size is that? What size do you need?" She then gets right up in my face, pretty much out of nowhere, and she screams at me, "You tell me." And once she did that, I decided to to get malicious and get back at her in the best way I knew how. After having taken this for just about the last time, and since I was unable to hold it back, I said to her, "I have no clue, ma'am. There's an entire wall of screws. It's impossible for me to tell its size just by looking at it." She then says to me, "You will not come at me like that. Your manager would not like that." And she says this in such a way where she's trying to hold herself up as royalty, as if I'm supposed to be afraid of her. I look at her and say, "Well, I can get a manager if you'd like. Maybe one of them can identify the screw by sight." This entitled Karen then looks at me and says, "Don't make me mad today. Just do your job." And it's right about then that I decided to maliciously comply. I realized that I had already told her exactly where the product was that she was looking for. So I look at her with a smug look on my face and I say, "Yes, ma'am, I'll do my job." And with that, I walked away from her with my trolley and proceeded to continue looking for the items on my order. The entitled Karen approaches me again and says, "What are you doing?" I looked at her square in the eye and I said, "I'm doing my job." Now, the best part about this is that an aisle over, one of our assistant managers was actually nearby. With the entitled Karen ranting and stomping around like a toddler, I walked over when I noticed him, and I told him I had two issues. For starters, I can't find the item I need to fulfill this online order. And secondly, this entitled Karen might want to talk to him. He laughed and showed me where the correct size of sheet metal was, and totally ignored this entitled Karen. That is, until she huffed loudly and stormed away. I don't think she liked that my manager did like how I handled the situation, but honestly, that's her problem and not mine. That entitled Karen was super obnoxious. Can you imagine just carrying around a random screw and being like, "What size is this?" Like, if you worked in construction or as a carpenter or something along those lines, you could probably look at that screw and be like, "Oh, it's this certain size." I know people who do that and it's really cool to see. But for the average worker at Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that, there's no way they're gonna know that just by looking at it. So this entitled Karen was completely out of line. Like, she literally could have come into that place of business and measured it ahead of time so she knows what she's buying, instead of yelling at this hourly worker who definitely did not deserve that kind of treatment. And also, what was with her basically pretending to be the Hulk? "You're not gonna like me when I'm angry." Like, what, are you gonna start turning green and throwing things? So good for the original poster for basically saying, "Oh, okay, you want me to do my job? Fine, I'll do my job." Because if somebody talked to me like that, I can't say I wouldn't do the same thing. And if anything, it was probably really satisfying to watch her storm away, angry that she didn't get her way. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Today, I messed up by getting matching lobster tattoos with my boyfriend after watching Friends, and I feel really stupid and I really don't know what to do. So this happened a few months ago, but I just found out how bad it was today. So my boyfriend and I are huge fans of the show Friends, and we decided to binge watch the whole series during quarantine. We got to the episode where Phoebe tells Ross that Rachel is his lobster because lobsters mate for life, and we thought it was the cutest thing ever. We've been dating for 2 years, and we were thinking of taking our relationship to the next level. So we thought, why not get matching lobster tattoos to show our love and commitment? Well, we found a tattoo parlor that was open, and they had some good reviews, and so we booked an appointment. We chose a simple design of 2 lobsters holding claws, and we got them inked on our ankles. Now, it hurt a lot, but we were so happy and proud of our tattoos. We took pictures and posted them on Instagram and got a lot of likes and comments from our friends and family. Everyone thought it was adorable and romantic. Fast forward to today, and I was browsing an online forum, and I came across a post that asked, what is something that everyone thinks is true but is actually false? I clicked on it out of curiosity purely, and I saw a comment that said, lobsters don't mate for life. They're actually very promiscuous and will mate with different partners every mating season. I was shocked and confused. I googled it, and sure enough, it was true. Lobsters are not monogamous at all. They're basically the opposite of what Phoebe said. I feel like an idiot. I had just permanently marked myself with a symbol of something that was completely false. I called my boyfriend and I told him the bad news. He seemed to be equally stunned and embarrassed. We both regretted our decision and wish we had done more research before getting the tattoos. Now we're stuck with stupid lobsters that mean absolutely nothing to us. I've got to be honest, I think that's really hilarious. You got a tattoo thinking what was going on was true, but you know what? It ended up being false. And now you're stuck with this tattoo for the rest of your life. That's awful. Unless you want to get it removed or anything like that. In fact, the original poster actually went on to explain more about what happened afterwards. It looks like they had a heart-to-heart last night, and the boyfriend reassured the original poster so much. He said he still adores the lobster tattoos because they represent their love for each other and for Friends. The original poster goes on to explain that Friends as more than just a show to them. It's what brought them together and helped them through very tough times. The boyfriend went on to explain further that the tattoos are a tribute of their passion for each other and for the show, and that's what counts, not some random fact about nature. They will always be meaningful to them, and they are still a nod to the show and a wink to other Friends fans, even if the facts don't line up. And that honestly, in my opinion, is really cool. You're able to turn a negative into a positive. Personally, if that happened to me and I put these tattoos on my body and I thought it meant one thing and then I found out it meant another thing, I would immediately start laughing. I wouldn't take that personally in the slightest. That's a story you can tell for the rest of your life. So in my opinion, you didn't mess up at all. You and your partner did a really fun thing that will mean a lot to both of you moving forward. I pulled my daughter out of a private religious school without consulting my husband, and I did this because of the sketchy nature of this school, as well as the fact that my husband ignored all of my concerns. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my husband and I have a daughter that's 6 years old. We've been married for 6 years, and we dated for about a year before we got married. When my husband and I first started dating, I learned that he grew up in a very religious family. He's not fanatically religious, and he always shared stories about strange things that he's seen at tent revivals, where he would meet people claiming they are healing others from demons, speaking in tongues, and stuff like that. He has said he's not nearly as religious like the rest of his family, which I found reassuring because I grew up in a pretty relaxed family when it came to religion. He even told me how refreshing I was to him because of how secular and open-minded I am. Anytime I've spent time with his family, he always told me not to take anything they say seriously. They really wanted me to convert and join their church, which I didn't want to, and it really was a point of contention. When we got married, it was an overly religious event, but it was only like that so that we could appeal to my mother-in-law so that they wouldn't make a big stink about it. Now, appeasing his parents was mostly only in small doses here and there, so I tolerated it because I loved him. His parents became insufferable and tried to control a lot of decisions when my daughter was born. His mother gave me a lot of garbage about how concerned they were about my daughter being raised by me. They even wanted to homeschool her when it was time for her to go to school, but I shut that garbage down right away. I've talked to him so many times before about how he needs to stand up to his parents and back me up more. He thought of a compromise where we can send her to a private school that is of his religion. I was skeptical, but I was open-minded, and I wanted to meet with the teachers and the faculty at the school. And when I did, they seemed alright. I mean, I had friends that went to religious schools and it did work out. So to keep the peace amongst the family, we enrolled her. I knew I wanted to make sure her home life would be an environment for open-minded thinking. I've expressed this to him, and he told me he would be open to enrolling her to another school if it doesn't work out. She's been going to this school for 2 years now, and anytime I talk to him about my concerns, he just deflects it. I've had her talk to me about the concept of heck, if you know what I mean, asking me if I think her grandfather is going to be there. I recently witnessed her waving her arms slowly in the air, head bowed to the floor, moving to the music when watching TV sometimes. I'm terrified of the indoctrination at such a young age. I've had enough. So I took her out of the school without even talking to my husband first, because he has absolutely no sense of urgency and shuts down the topics immediately. Now, when he found out, he was furious with me and screamed at me and was trying to tell me how much of a nightmare public schools can be, and that one of the teachers at the private school is friends with his mother, and she is going to be telling her everything. Now, this is literally such a nightmare, and I feel sick about subjecting my daughter to all of this conflict and tension. My husband left and said he needed time to process what I did. He's spending Easter with his parents, and I'm alone with my daughter. Now, I'm not lost when it comes to knowing that I want to protect my daughter at all costs. What I'm really unsure about is how to move forward with my relationship. This has been one of the only times I stood my ground, and everything feels like it's crumbling and falling apart. The original poster actually provided us with an update as to what happened next after this experience. This is what they had to say. I am very frustrated with myself for letting things get out of hand like this. My daughter means everything to me, and I'm upset that I didn't stop all of this sooner or saw the warning signs earlier. I know it seems so obvious and I should have known better, but it's hard to explain why it was so hard. I was basically a frog in a pot of water that was very slowly starting to boil. There was a weird fog of war from everything going on that I deluded myself into thinking compromise was possible. My husband's ambivalence to what I find alarming really slowly evolved over time. It wasn't like a light switch. Now, I know that hindsight is 20/20, but I can't help but feel anger to myself. I basically took her out of the school Thursday morning of last week, the night night before, we got into an argument when I brought up my discomfort about the school. I know a lot of people thought my breaking point was seeing my daughter praying and swaying, but it was really a culmination of a lot of things. Between the praying, the fire and brimstone mentality of the topics about heck, and the fear I sense coming from her, the awkwardness and the coldness I would get from faculty at the school whenever I picked her up, and she would sometimes spew gibberish or recite Bible passages of which she really doesn't even understand or comprehend any of its actual meaning, and examples like this went on and on. My frustrations boiled over, and my husband refused to talk about it, as he has done several times before over the last 2 years. So the following morning, I just took her out of school. After he screamed at me and argued with me about how public schools are dangerous, he stormed off, and I haven't heard from him since that argument. He's completely missing in action. I've met with a few schools, and I'm already trying to find solutions on that end. I am not worried about finding a less scarring and a less awful environment for her. I really do think there are some really good options that we can pursue. My main worry now is the unpredictable nature and the silence from my husband. My husband has some connections to a few divorce lawyers, so I talked to some in preparation for the worst. Yesterday evening, a man in his late 70s or early 80s stopped by our house. I didn't answer the door because I didn't recognize him. He went on to suspiciously mosey about my property, looking around the house, and then suddenly left. I called the police, and they went around and surveyed, but the man had left before the police arrived. Earlier this afternoon, I went to get the mail, and I saw this man again, and he approached me, and he walked right up to me as if he knew me. He said to me, "I'm just checking on the welfare of the child that lives in this house." I asked him who he was, and he refused to answer me. He then started to mention the name of the psychiatrist that I see, and then mentioned that a little girl being looked after by a young woman with mental illness is a cause of great alarm, something along those lines. Now, for a bit of context, I've been going to a psychiatrist for an anxiety disorder. It's nothing out of hand, and I've gotten a firm grasp on keeping it at bay with medication, and it's honestly been something that's been completely manageable. Now, only my husband knows about this and has any idea that I see a psychiatrist, so I assume his parents know because he knows. And this man obviously must know my husband and his parents. That's my only assumption. I told this man to leave, and I threatened to call the police. And while he did end up leaving, he did say before he left that the girl is going to be protected. I'm going to meet with a lawyer tomorrow and figure out a plan. I'm going to file for a divorce because this has gotten to a point where I feel unsafe. I worry that me being treated for anxiety will be used against me. I have no idea what they are plotting against me, but they are playing mind games with me. I left the house with my daughter, we're safe, and I have a much clearer idea and solution going forward. I'm not going to try and salvage the relationship with my husband, and my main focus is to make sure my daughter is stable and has a safe environment. I'm pretty sure this is the plot of some Jordan Peele movie. Like, this is just creepy. Like, what on earth is going on? This is just scary and creepy and really disturbing. I first off want to say the original poster is 100% in the right. She has every right to be sketched out by the way her 8-year-old daughter is acting, and also the fact that basically she got tricked into letting her kid go to this school. And worst of all, it looks like her husband just doesn't care. He literally doesn't care about the situation in the slightest. He literally let all of this happen because he wanted to appeal to his parents. That is literally the reason for the season in this situation. And this is one of those worst case scenarios where you hoped it wouldn't get to this point, but the cat slowly emerged out of the bag after 2 years of this garbage. And it's also comical that the husband would be like, "Oh, but public schools are so dangerous." He wasn't saying that when they first signed their daughter up for school. He was so on board of saying, "Look, if this doesn't work out, we'll send her somewhere else." I mean, where did that plan go, buddy? I thought that was something you wanted to do. But instead, he's letting his mother put a leash on him and basically lead his marriage along. I know if I was in the original poster's shoes, I would do the exact same thing. I would shut down that homeschooling garbage right away, and I probably would have taken my kid out of school as well, especially if I was uncomfortable with it and if my kid was acting like this. That is not normal behavior for an 8-year-old. It's weird, it's creepy, and it's not normal for an 8-year-old. She is literally just mimicking all the people around her, and she's not coming from any place where she understands what she's saying. Like, this is not okay in my opinion. And this is what your mother-in-law wanted? Like, seriously? She clearly just wanted another person to join her church, and since it wasn't you, she's now coming for your daughter. And I seriously can't stress it enough how weird and crazy that is to me. And it's also obvious over the past 2 years that your husband has made a complete 180. At first he was like, "Listen, don't listen to my parents, they're weird, they're gonna say stuff that's weird, just ignore them when you meet them," all the way to present day, where he's basically regurgitating everything his mom and dad are probably telling him. It's almost like he has no autonomy over his own life, and he's allowing that to happen to his daughter, to your daughter. So with that in mind, I don't blame you for taking the steps that you did. Not only for saying, you know what, I want to get a divorce, but also for telling this old man who's stalking your property to either get lost or the police are going to come along. This is really sad and weird stuff, and hopefully for the sake of you and your daughter, it all works out in the end. Because from the sounds of it, just from what I've read, it seems like your mother-in-law and father-in-law have their hooks completely in your husband. And unless he wakes up and sees exactly what's going to happen to his marriage, I just don't personally see anything happening that would possibly change his mind. An entitled adult expected a perfect car wash from a bunch of little kids trying to make money. And when he got out of his car and started screaming at all of us, my mom got up in his face and put him in his place. Here's what happened. So when I was a kid, I tried my hardest to be a little entrepreneur, and my mother supported me all the way. I had lemonade stands, I sold books of poetry on the corner by my house, and all my neighbors supported me all the way. The summer that I was 8 years old, I decided that lemonade stands didn't generate enough money, so I, with my neighbors that were all my age, decided to not only do a lemonade stand, but also a car wash. This was over a decade ago where children could basically do whatever. My mom gave us access to the hose, bought us some big sponges, and a Home Depot bucket full of soapy water. We charged $5 for a car wash and sold lemonade to the owners while they waited for us to finish. We ended up making over $100 in a week. On the third day, a man pulled up asking for a car wash. We got to work scrubbing the sides, the tires, and the windows. However, being 8 years old, none of us could get up high enough to clean his roof beyond hitting it with the hose. We figured that this wasn't a big deal because, again, he paid us $5. But you know what? We were mistaken. This grown adult man decided that he was going to get out of his car and scream at a bunch of elementary school children because we did not scrub down the roof. He screamed that he wasn't going to pay us because he had not gotten his money's worth. My mother sat on the front steps the entire time to watch over all of us while we worked. However, she had gone inside to use the bathroom right before this happened. When she heard him screaming, she ran out. Now, a little backstop about my mom, she is one tough lady. An openly gay woman, she's a cancer survivor, and a complete mama bear. She was not gonna stand for this. This 5'3" lady got in his face and screamed back something along the lines of basically calling him a jerk. She said, "Why would you ever expect a professional job from 8-year-olds? You're being charged $5, and you are going to pay them or there's gonna be problems." After she said that, I have never seen a grown man look so intimidated. He ended up giving us a $20 bill and told us to keep the change. He then got back in his car and he drove away. So with all things considered, I truly love my mom. Your mom is awesome. And that guy in the car was an obnoxious jerk. Like, seriously, what was he thinking? These are 8-year-olds trying to scrub down your stupid car. You can't possibly expect a good job out of that, right? These are literally just kids trying to make money. So to have the audacity to try and start screaming at children, all because you don't think they're doing a good job, truly makes you the biggest jerk in the world. Two entitled parents steal seats at a theater, refusing to leave and go to another seat. Things got so bad that I threatened to call security if they seriously thought they could steal these seats from other patrons. Here's what happened. So to start things out, picture this. I'm a part-time host at a theater, working in the busiest cinema in the city. It's a Friday night, so it's extra busy, and I've just got done with stocking up one of the storerooms. I'm asked to go deal with a problem in one of the screens as retail is too busy and they can't spare anybody. I'm led to a group of nice women who were very apologetic about taking me away from my job, which is totally fine. I hate my job anyways, and this is a wonderful distraction. They explained there were people sitting in their assigned seats and were refusing to move. Now, the way our cinema worked was that there were 2 rows of assigned premiere seats in the center of the screen, and everything else was unassigned. You sit wherever you want. The assigned seats are clearly labeled as such. You're also told when you buy your tickets and when you get them checked to sit anywhere but the premiere seats. So it's not difficult to figure out how things worked. Well, I walked into the screen with the women following behind me, and it was packed. There were definitely spare seats, but you'd be hard-pressed to find 2 or more together. I walk up to the premiere rows and figure out which seats these ladies have from their tickets, and I tell them to wait on the edge while I go talk to the seat thieves. To add on to all of this, the film was literally about to start. The trailers were over, and there were a couple of ads before things kicked off, so I honestly didn't have much time. Anyways, I I do the awkward shuffle to get past people until I'm facing the dad of a family of 4. He rolls his eyes when he sees me, because I don't think he expected the group of women to escalate things in this way. I explained that I believe they're in the wrong seats, as the women stood just at the edge of where they were meant to be seating. He denies it and says these are his family seats. I asked to see his tickets, and sure enough, he's got standard ones and can sit anywhere but the premier seats. I point out his mistake, and I tell him that him and his family will need to move and find other places to sit. The mom chimes in now and says that the group of women have only just got here, right as the film is about to start, whereas they've been sitting here since before the trailers were even on, so they shouldn't be forced to move. I explained that the women paid extra for the privilege of being able to arrive right before the film starts and still have good seats. Plus, if the family really had been here since before the trailer started, they would have had the pick of the entire cinema to sit in, minus the premiere seat, so their mistake was on them. At this point, as you can probably expect, the dad gets very angry. He raises his voice to just below yelling and tells me his family isn't moving. They were here first, and the women will have to sit somewhere else. The teenagers they had with them looked like they wanted the floor to swallow them whole. I didn't yell at the guy, but I did say I wasn't moving until they did, and if I had to, I would stand directly in front of him for the entire film. I also threatened to call security, but that was a big old bluff. We don't have security. At this point, the kids were starting to gently suggest to their parents that they need to move, but the mom and dad were not having it, and both started loudly arguing with me. The dad started demanding that I find them new seats. I told him I wouldn't be doing that. I wasn't allowed to start reshuffling the entire cinema, especially when it's 2 minutes before the film starts. And I'm definitely not going to do that because it's their mistake. I told them that they would have to sit separately, and I'm sorry, but that's just how it goes. At this point, the mom is also now insisting that they need to move, and the people around us are starting to get annoyed as well. The dad finally realizes that he's not going to win this, and the entire family gets up and moves elsewhere. I awkwardly shuffle back down the aisle towards the women, who were incredibly apologetic and thankful, and I told them it's no big deal, and that I love doing stuff like that. And to tell you the truth, I absolutely do love telling entitled people off, but it was an overwhelming and adrenaline-spiking experience, and I ended up having a small cry in the storeroom afterwards. All in all, things went well, and the family didn't complain any further. I have no idea whether they managed to find seats next to each other, but I can only assume that they didn't after the scene they caused. If I was sitting in that theater, I definitely would not want to help out a family like that either. These entitled parents were being just super obnoxious. Like, they easily could have picked any other seats, but they wanted the premiere ones because they thought nobody was going to show up. Like, that's exactly what was going through their head. They thought they were getting a good deal because nobody was going to show up. And you know what? Just as the original poster said it, that is completely on them. They should have known better, and they should have just gotten a seat, I don't know, 1 row behind them. Like, did they really have to steal the premiere seats? And now they all have to sit by themselves. And with all things considered, especially considering their horrible attitude, the entitled parents especially got exactly what they deserved. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked down below in the description. My friend's HOA gives them fines simply because we tried to check the oil in his driveway. So we decided to maliciously comply, and we got revenge in the funniest way possible. Here's what happened. So back in high school, I was all about my car. Don't get me wrong, it was a rolling piece of garbage, but it was my car. And while it did have a trade-in value of maybe $5, it was still my car. I was learning how to take care of it, and by that, I mean I found out where the dipstick was and how to pull it out. One day after school, I drove over to my friend's place. We jumped out, popped the hood, and pulled the dipstick. We checked the oil and it was fine, and so we then put the hood back down. I also had no idea what an HOA was, nor what it meant. I was just a happy, ignorant teenager, eager to demonstrate how responsible I was with my wheels. A few days go by, and we're hanging out at my friend's place when his mom comes home. She starts to give us the business in a tone of voice that basically says I'm annoyed but trying not to be. She says that she received a warning from the HOA regarding repairing cars in your driveway, complete with a photo of my piece of garbage car with the hood up. Really, she was being pretty good, though clearly very annoyed. We explained that we weren't repairing anything and that I was just checking the oil levels and didn't even have any tools. The picture was just with a hood up. She softened quite a bit, and the focus of her annoyance shifted from us to the HOA, since it is entirely reasonable for anyone to check the level of the oil in a car. She finds her copy of the HOA rules, and we read them together. together. Sure enough, there's a bylaw that says you can't repair a car in the driveway. I protest that I wasn't repairing anything. I was just checking the oil. Reading the exact rules on exactly what was forbidden sparked an idea. I look at my friend, raise an eyebrow, and I say to them, "Fight the power?" And we say in unison, "Fight the power." I propose my plan to his mom and ask for permission, since she's going to have to deal with all the fallout. She is on board, since she thinks that this is supremely stupid, and we set it all in motion. And this is right when the malicious compliance begins. So every day after school, my friend and I drove my piece of garbage machine to his place, parked it in their driveway, raised the hood, and just looked at the engines. We didn't have tools, and we weren't even near them. We didn't check the oil. We didn't so much as touch them, nor wipe them down with a rag. All we did was expose them to the birds, the skies, and God above to just let them breathe. After a while, I got bored, so I started setting up an easel and drawing my engine 10 minutes at a time. My friend had to one-up me, so he decided that he needed to take some tasteful artistic photos with the engine. He judged the best photos would be him laying over the engine shirtless, stroking it and fake kissing it. Just absurd, over-the-top, moronic high schooler stuff. Predictably, the HOA was on us like stink on garbage. The warnings quickly turned to fines, complete with pictures of both vehicles with their hoods up. Then more pictures with mine with its hood up and an easel in front. Then even more pictures with my friend's with his hood up and him laying on the engine compartment and me taking pictures of him with a camera. Soon enough, his mom let us know that it was time for the monthly HOA meeting. Of course, all three of us had to go in person to protest the fines. So the motley pair of us show up along with his mom and his mom's stack of fine notices. I bring along my engine drawing and we printed some of my friend's engine photos larger than normal. After a while, it was new business time and my friend's mom steps up. I'm pretty sure they expected her to play the "my son and his friend are morons" card, but nope, not a chance. She politely but firmly attested that she was being sent fines for something that isn't in the bylaws and asked the board to stop. One of the board members spoke up, saying that working on cars was against the bylaws, and clearly that's what's going on since both hoods are up. And oh, you should have seen their faces when she corrected them, that the bylaws said no repairs were allowed, and also there weren't repairs going on in any of the pictures, since no tools were visible, and that we were just doing art projects for school. Even longer faces were seen when she showed my drawings of the engine, along with the pictures that had date stamps on them. The HOA president called for a 5-minute recess, during which the board huddled in a corner of the room. After the recess, the president succinctly said, "Ma'am, we are going to dismiss all your fines. Have a nice evening." We near danced out of that meeting room. Being the obnoxious little jerks that my friend and I were, we had to do the drawings and photo routine a few more times just to make sure they weren't going to send more fines. Wisely enough, they didn't send any more fines, and me and my friend came out on top in the funniest way possible. HOAs are so annoying. As someone who deals with an HOA constantly, it really does suck. They monitor what you're doing and they're super annoying to deal with. So you definitely have my compassion when you have to deal with these weirdos. And also, it's so stupid that just because the hood was up, they assume that, yeah, you must have been doing repairs. Like, that is seriously so dumb. There's literally no reason for that, and there's no reason to try and make these dumb rules just to appease to whatever power control you want to have. But on the other end of that, the way you handled this was absolutely hilarious. I would have never thought to do any kind of drawing or pictures just to try and prove them wrong and be like, nope, we definitely were not working on our car. But in the end, it worked out, and honestly, this was a really funny way to solve this problem. I am highly uncomfortable with my boyfriend's best female friend, and I seriously at this point don't know what to do. So as the title suggests, my boyfriend has a female best friend from college who makes me very uncomfortable. They have been friends for around 10 years now and have been pretty close, but they've never dated. But he has admitted to me that he used to have a crush on her, and in college would go to her apartment at night in the hopes of hooking up with her, and it just never happened. This girl, who we will call Jane, that's not her real name, is the kind of girl who flirts with guys for attention and plays dumb to seem cute. I have always felt weird about the way she interacts with my boyfriend. One example is that he invited a group of friends over to watch a football game once, and it was pretty cold out, and everyone was in hoodies and sweatshirts. Jane showed up in short shorts and a tank top. Later in the evening, someone complimented her on her outfit, and she said she only wore it for my boyfriend, which I thought was very odd. After months of trying to be friendly with this girl, I got fed up. She has never asked me a question about myself, never made an effort to get to know me, but is always following my boyfriend around. I tell my boyfriend this, is, and how weird she is with me, and how some of the things he said about her make me uncomfortable. And while he was kind of defensive at first, eventually he seemed to understand and assure me that it wasn't something I should worry about. Jane went to Europe a few months ago and returned recently. I don't follow her on social media, so I didn't know she was back until she randomly showed up at my boyfriend's birthday party. When she showed up, I was talking to other people, and my boyfriend took that time to tell all of his friends and all of my friends that I hate her and to keep her away from me, which I did not appreciate, as it made it much weirder for me, and it felt like he was distancing she and I so I wasn't included, maybe making it easier for him to hang out with her without anyone mentioning it to me going forward. I would have preferred if he had said nothing and just let me handle it privately, instead of telling everyone that we know how I actually feel about her. His reactions made me so uncomfortable. I looked through his phone while he was sleeping, and I found texts from her the week prior, where he must have seen that she was back in town, and he texted her saying, "Oh, you're back? You want to grab lunch?" And her response was that she was busy, but then sent a text saying, "I finished my stuff early if you want to still grab lunch." He never replied, and I don't know if they ever did get lunch. He also did not mention this to me at all, but while we were fighting a few weeks later about how he dealt with the situation, I asked if he knew she was back in town, and he said no. He had no idea she was even in the country, so he just straight up lied to me. I didn't even tell him that I knew they had talked before his birthday. I don't know what to do. I have an ex-boyfriend who acted the exact same way with a female friend, who ended up cheating on me with her. So the situation is very triggering for me, and I seriously don't know what to do. This is really disappointing the way that your boyfriend's acting, because honestly, it seems like he's encouraging this behavior. Like he is doing literally nothing to set up boundaries with this female friend, and is in fact just making it so he has a second girlfriend, because that's exactly the way this seems. Also, the way that your boyfriend handled the situation by basically announcing to everybody that no, you don't like this lady, now gives the perception to everybody else around you that you are difficult and you are a mean girlfriend, which is not the case. You're literally just trying to set boundaries. Your boyfriend crossed a line, and he is absolutely lying to you. And it's also incredibly unfortunate. He would rather have this pick-me girl around who's clearly just playing games with him and flirting with him but not actually flirting with him and all this other garbage, as opposed to being dedicated to his girlfriend. And that's not your fault, that's on him. So if there's any kind of change that needs to happen, trust me when I say this, it needs to come from your boyfriend. An entitled Karen at my work literally makes problems for me as well as the rest of the office, forcing me to maliciously comply and find some kind of solution to all these problems. Here's what happened. So for starters, and a bit of context, I work in IT. I don't deal with generic computer problems. I'm an expert in complicated programs at work. Almost every department in my work uses this program. When bugs or issues are found, I do my best to fix it myself. If I can't fix it, then I forward the issue to our vendor, who manages the program for us. Taking new versions of this program is a big deal. We just don't take it. We install the new version in a non-production environment, and every department must test it and sign off on it. This process can take 1 to 2 months to complete. Now enter our Karen of this story. It's good to note that dealing with her has always been an issue. She always gives me garbage for bugging her when I have questions. I thought it was personal, but I asked other people in IT about her, and they confirmed that she is always a pain in the butt to deal with. We were 1 day away from taking an upgrade, and this upgrade was important, as it had new features that were needed for new clients, plus several extremely needed bug fixes. This is after we went through testing and got signed off from every department to take this version. Of course, the entitled Karen of the office opens up a help desk ticket on the new version we just got. Now, it's a big enough issue to cancel the upgrade, submitted literally in the final hour. Needless to say, the higher ups were very upset, and I got huge pressure to submit this to the vendor as soon as possible. The help desk ticket stated the issue, and at the bottom of the ticket was the sentence that said, "You may not contact me about this issue. There will be no instant messaging me, no calling me, no emailing me, or standing next to my desk." So I reviewed the ticket, even though I was a little bit confused. And guess what? The issue was a user error. So this is where my malicious compliance came in. Since I couldn't talk to her about it, I went straight to the higher ups, the same people pressuring me to submit the issue. I told them the problem and how I wasn't allowed to contact her about it. So they said that they would take care of it. About an hour later, the entitled Karen comes sheepishly to my desk, and this was probably the nicest I have ever seen her. I pointed out the issue to her, and she said that she would review it. 5 minutes later, I get a message from her saying to close the ticket. And then the upgrade proceeded as planned. This happened several years ago, and I wish I could say that she got fired for this little stunt, but that just didn't happen. However, I got the next best thing. She was no longer in charge of testing. In fact, I haven't gotten a single help desk ticket from her ever since. That entitled Karen was literally just being annoying. She not only made the problem itself, but then basically forced your hand to go to the higher ups and be like, hey, can you take care of this? Because this is obnoxious. And she's literally delaying our upgrades. And you know what? If I was in the original poster's shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. This entitled Karen is literally notorious for being incredibly rude, and I am not about to be caught in her crossfire. So hopefully the next time she submits a ticket error, she'll be a little bit nicer in her message. My boyfriend is suddenly demanding that we should get married and have some kids. And this is literally coming out of nowhere, and it's kind of got me freaked out, and at this point, I don't know what to do. So I have always felt like I'm much more invested in my relationship than my boyfriend is. We've been dating for just over a year, and he is a workaholic, and also very keen on having his own me time. I'm the same way most of the time. However, I have expressed frustration at times that we don't see each other more often, and that we never really do anything together except have dinner once or twice a week. He will seldom stay over, and when he does stay over, he will be out the front door before 7 a.m. the next morning to go work on his hobby projects. I barely ever see him in the daytime. In general, I've always felt like I'm putting 10 times more time and effort into the relationship than he does. And I know that sounds really stupid. If there is a crisis of any sort, you can trust him to completely disappear. For obvious reasons, I've totally given up on the idea that this will ever become a serious relationship. The situation actually suits me great because I suddenly have a lot of stuff going on in my life, meaning I don't really have time for a full-on relationship anyways. In other words, I am quite happy to just dawdle along in this not quite relationship for now. Anyways, a couple of days ago, out of the blue, he just totally lost it with me because I haven't begged him to get married to me or to have children. Apparently, getting married and having children is now a must-have for him, and it needs to happen as soon as possible. I asked him why he has this sudden change of heart to make this relationship serious all of the sudden. He got really offended, saying he thought it was always serious. Now, to be clear, I have to basically beg to see him for even an hour a week, and now he is angry that I haven't suggested marriage and kids to him. Should I run away from this relationship? It feels like I'm being manipulated somehow, but I'm honestly not sure what to do. This relationship definitely sounds incredibly sketchy. Like the way your boyfriend's acting is just not normal. Like, let me get this straight. He went from being super passive in the relationship to suddenly being all on board and really wanting to get married really quickly. Like, really, what did change in this relationship? He hasn't been around in the relationship in the slightest, and he's been just doing other things besides paying attention to you. But suddenly, it's like he did a 180, and now he's all obsessed with you. He wants to get married, he wants to have kids right away. And that is super sketchy, and that's a big red flag in my opinion. If I was in your shoes and I was getting this kind of pressure all of a sudden, seemingly out of nowhere, I would be pumping the brakes right away. I would be like, whoa, we need to take a step back. Where is this coming from? You've never acted like this. This is incredibly weird behavior, and it's not something I'm ready to do. So hopefully if you have that kind of conversation with him, it goes well. Because from the sounds of it, he doesn't seem like the most stable person to talk to, and hopefully with all things considered, including his attitude, this conversation goes well in some kind of way. My entitled mother steals my food and drinks from me, and then demands that I pay her back after I take my food back. And at this point, I'm so frustrated and annoyed that I seriously don't know what to do. So for a bit of backstory, I'm 21 years old, and I live with my parents as the economy right now is insane, and finding a place to live without being unable to still buy food and water is near impossible where I live. Now, my mother's the type who feels entitled to anything in the house, even while I'm living with her, and despite the items having been bought with my money, it's still under her roof. Back in September of last year, I bought a mini fridge for my bedroom. I buy my own foods and drinks, as they're better for my diet than the foods my parents buy. Not to mention, my mother always tells me to pay her back for any food of theirs that I eat, so I just buy my own stuff and get it over with. I haven't had any issues with anyone else trying to take my food or drinks since I got it, so I never thought that I would need to take precautions. That is, until a couple of weeks ago. I had bought a small cheesecake from the grocery store as I'd been craving it, and I had the money to be able to get it. I also got a pack of sodas just to have for myself whenever I want. I had just left home to go to work, and I didn't think I'd have any worries. After getting home from a long day, I planned to shower and sit down with my treat and maybe just watch a nice movie. But when I looked in the fridge to grab a water, the cheesecake and 4 sodas were missing. I had asked my fiance if she had eaten the cheesecake or drank any of the sodas, and she said that she had taken a long shower and napped all day, as her day before had been really exhausting to say the least. So I checked the family fridge, and what do I find? I find my missing cheesecake and my sodas. And when I saw that, I was very upset. I grabbed them all and I placed them back in my fridge before asking around to see who took it. My brother was in school all day, and my dad had apparently taken up an extra shift at work, so that just left my mother. But when I asked her, she acted offended that I would accuse her of theft. So I just decided to leave it alone. It was safely back with me, and I planned to share the treat with my fiance and drink a soda and just leave it behind me. The next day, my mother burst into my room, screaming at me for stealing from her. I had just woken up and wasn't fully registering what was happening. My fiance, however, was still asleep, and the noise woke her up in a panic. I asked what this was all about, and she screamed at me about the cheesecake and the sodas, and how it was expensive to get, and how dare I take that away. She was planning to eat it that night with my dad and watch some movies with him, as it was his first days off in a week. Instead of being angry, I actually started laughing. This wasn't the first time she'd accused me of stealing from her after she took it from me. This did not go over well with my mother, and she screeched again and again about me giving it back to her. I laughed harder and had to catch my breath. I told her that I had bought them, and that we had already eaten the cheesecake the night prior, and that I'm keeping my sodas. She screamed that I better pay her back for the things that I stole from her. She also said that the next time she buys things, she's gonna keep count of exactly how much she has so that she knows when I steal again. I then stood up and opened my bag, where I had the receipt from when I bought the items, and right then I shoved it right in her face. I told her I'd bought them as a little treat for myself for working so much, and that she wasn't getting any of it. And then I had the best idea I ever had. I told her I was gonna get another cheesecake because I had some cash that could pay for it, and she wasn't gonna get any of that one either. Then I turned to my fiance and I told her to grab my phone and see how much a fridge lock would cost. Needless to say, my mother was not happy about me trying to put a lock on my fridge in her house, stating that I don't have permission. So I reminded her that her house or not, it was my fridge. I paid for it, and I can lock it if I want to. My fiance then told me I could get a fridge lock online for cheap and that it would be delivered in 2 days. So I ordered it right in front of my mother, and then told her that since I didn't have work for a couple of days, I would be keeping an eye on all of my things. She eventually stomped out of my room in a fit of rage and screeched to my dad about how disrespectful her daughter was, and how dare I speak to her like that. And I have laughed about it pretty much every day since then. And when the lock came in, I put it on my fridge immediately. And now everywhere I go, whether I'm going to work or even to the bathroom, the keys go with me, unless my fiance is staying home. And if that's what's happening, then she's gonna keep the keys. So hopefully this will prevent my mom from stealing from me in the future. Your mom sounds so annoying. I mean, she literally went into your fridge and stole your food, and then tried to pretend like, oh, I bought this. This is mine. Like, no, it's not. You literally took it out of their fridge. And then also in that same sentence to be like, you better pay me back for taking my stuff. Like, no, that's not how this is gonna work. And you know what? If I was in the original poster's shoes, I absolutely would have put a lock on my fridge as well. The mom in this story sounds crazy, and it's just so bizarre to me that someone could seriously act like that. I think it's also worth mentioning that you should really check the plug every now and then, because based on the mom's behavior, I can absolutely see them trying to like unplug the fridge or something like that just to make your food and your treats all go bad. And that would be a nightmare to deal with. Can you imagine spending all this money on food just for her to spoil and ruin all of it in one go? Maybe even investing in some kind of lock on your room itself. I'm sure she would probably like go nuts if you did that, but I mean, how else are you able to have any kind of privacy in there? So hopefully one day your fiance as well as yourself can get out of that house. Your mom does not sound like a nice person, and I seriously don't see you living there long term. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Today I messed up by stealing my daughter's chocolate and blaming it on a leprechaun. And now as a result, she has set up a trap for this supposed leprechaun, and I am stuck in this facade trying to not let off that I definitely stole her chocolate. Here's what happened. So this happened today, and I'm not exactly proud of it, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only parent who has secretly eaten one of their kids' candies and then tried to play it off off as dumb. So my daughter got these small boxes of chocolate for Easter. I have to split custody arrangement, so they're with me for half the week and then go to their mom's. And while they were away, I craved some snacks. And that's right when I spotted my daughter's chocolate. My 10-year-old hadn't opened hers yet, so that was a no-go. But my 4-year-old had already eaten 2 and left 1 dark chocolate, as well as 1 milk chocolate piece behind. She seemed to have forgotten about it, instead going for chocolates from Easter eggs that she refused to call kisses, because in her mind they're chocolates, not kisses. Now she can be quite stubborn, and as much as I don't believe in the superstitions, I'm told all the time that it's appropriate that she's a redhead. Fast forward to when the girls returned from their mom's place today, and after dinner, my 4-year-old asked for dessert. I showed her the treat basket, and she immediately grabbed her box of chocolates. She opened it and frowned and said to me, "Where's my other chocolate? I had 2, but now there's only 1." Pretending like I didn't know anything, I asked her if she wanted something else. But as I mentioned earlier, my little one is as stubborn as they come. Suddenly she gasped and explained, "I knew it! A leprechaun stole it!" Now, I have no idea where she picked up the leprechaun's idea, but it must have been some lingering St. Patrick's Day lore. So, to avoid admitting my guilt, we set up a trap for the leprechaun, using the top of the chocolate box decorated with hieroglyphics. And this was all made by my 4-year-old daughter, with her claiming that these hieroglyphics were irresistible to leprechauns. We also added tape to catch the thief in our sticky trap. So now I'm stuck in this ridiculous charade, hoping that she'll just forget about it. But considering that she didn't forget about the chocolate, I shouldn't get my hopes up. And now I'm thinking I might have to buy a little leprechaun figure just to keep this going. This story is super cute. This original poster's daughter has a wild imagination, and it sounds like this is going to be a really fun thing to look back on later in life. Because of course you ate the chocolate, no leprechauns came in and took it. And I think an easy out in this situation is to maybe make like an apology note from one of the leprechauns with a new piece of chocolate sitting on the note, basically saying, "Hey, sorry I took the chocolate," and maybe that might take your daughter off your trail. But either way, this is just a cute story, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to have some fun with this. My boyfriend is incredibly clingy and makes really awkward comments and gestures about me in public, and it's really weird, and I seriously don't know what to do. So as the title says, my boyfriend is super clingy, and I feel like it's making me insane. I also feel super guilty because he generally does treat me really well. He cooks for me, he tells me I'm beautiful, etc. I used to love it at the start of our relationship, but it's just too much now. We also live and work together. When we're at home, he is constantly trying to spend quality time with me, if you know what I mean. And while it is nice that he obviously loves me a lot, it's become really irritating. I do tell him to stop eventually, and he just gets a bit upset, but doesn't say anything. He's also always touching me. Like, we will lie in bed, and his face will be up against mine. And this is like all the time. Or half of his body will be on me. And if I ask him for space, he just says that I'm mean. At work, he is often touching me, rubbing up against me, or whistling at me, telling me that I'm beautiful. And it sounds lovely, but honestly, it's just too much. And it's always also in front of coworkers, so it's really embarrassing. And when we're with friends, he's even worse, constantly kissing me or touching me. And I'll say that I'm uncomfortable when he does this in front of his friends, but he just laughs and carries on. He simply won't take me seriously. He often talks about us being married and having kids one day, and tells me that he loves me probably over 20 to 30 times a day. But the thing is, I don't actually think we have so much in common. We honestly never have deep or meaningful conversations. In fact, we never really talk about anything. It's just spending time or being close to each other, and him telling me that he loves me and that I'm beautiful. Whenever I talk about the future, not about marriage and kids, like actual things that I want to do and things that I want to see, he never asks me more questions about it. He just says something like, "That sounds good." And I don't know, maybe it's just me being petty, but I feel like he doesn't even know me in the slightest. I feel like he doesn't really love me, but he just wants to love and be loved. Like, it's not about me, I'm just who's here right now. I also know that he is still in contact with multiple ex-girlfriends, and to be completely honest, I don't even agree with it, but I've just stopped even caring at this point. He will just say he's just talking about me, which I know is complete BS on his end. There are also a couple of red flags about this guy. He has dated people a lot younger than him, and I've told him that this is wrong, and he literally just doesn't seem to understand. He also has completely opposing political views to me, and doesn't agree with non-binary and trans people, which really irritates me. He can also be pretty ableist. Like, I'll say I'm struggling with my mental health or socially, and he will say to me, just get up early or just get over it. This is all just a bit much, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, Yeah, the way your boyfriend is acting is really weird. He's almost treating you like some kind of doll or plaything. Like he's not treating you like a girlfriend. He's not getting to know you. He doesn't want to know about any of your interests. And he just keeps saying, I love you. And also embarrassing you in front of your coworkers. Like that is seriously weird and creepy and just straight up embarrassing. And there's no reason to do that at work. That is honestly so weird. For a bit of context, her boyfriend in this moment is literally 30 years old. Like, can you imagine being in the original poster shoes, showing up to work and trying to just, I don't know, make a living, and your boyfriend is catcalling you and whistling at you down the hallway in front of your boss, your coworkers, and your supervisors? I think I would go nuts if someone did that to me constantly every single day. And I think there's a difference between love and just being outright creepy. And I think your boyfriend falls in the creepy factor, whether you're in a relationship with him or not. He's not respecting your boundaries, and he's going way outside of your comfort zone, outside of your own home. And he is also not respecting your boundaries as well as your consent in front of your friends. Like, this is just really cringy behavior, and it sounds incredibly suffocating. So hopefully you can see that this guy is definitely kind of sketchy, and I just don't know if he's a good fit. This is incredibly awkward behavior, and I personally think you can do a lot better than this guy. Today, I messed up by trying to help an old lady who I thought was falling down, but in reality, she was just bowing at church, and as a result of me trying to help her out, she smacked me in the face. Here's what happened. So to start things off, this weird thing happened back in like 2008. It was a while ago, but I was telling a friend at work the craziest thing that happened to me at church. So while I was at this specific denomination, which was the same church where I was to be equally yoked with my wife, I personally found so many things that people did just downright bizarre. People were taking their fingers and hands, putting them in little dishes of water. They were bowing weirdly at odd times. They were doing all sorts of things I've never seen before. It's not like my wife didn't prep me. She totally did. There was even special names for all these weird things everyone was doing. So anyways, I find myself sitting in an aisle seat next to my entire family. I didn't really pay attention to the people around me, but all of a sudden an older lady approaches our aisle, turns abruptly towards me, and starts falling. Now, my first thought was that she's either tripping or worse, having a heart attack or a stroke. I'm ex-military, and even though we're not trained to save the day or anything like that, if a civilian is in trouble, we take care of what needs to get taken care of. As she was falling, I yelled out, "I've got you," just so she wouldn't fall anymore. All of a sudden, this lady starts slapping me, hard and repeatedly. Now, my whole family is in disbelief at this moment. Even my laughing 8-year-old could not believe what was happening. The music in the church stopped playing, and everyone, my wife included, started yelling. Now, in my defense, I knew that people bowed when they came into church, just to show God some respect. But this lady bowed so quickly and so abruptly, with a genuine look of pain on her face, that I in no way thought that she was genuflecting in some kind of way. The lady then changed her mind on what aisle she was going to go towards and walked away to another aisle, and then genuflected like everyone else. The rest of the service, I couldn't look at anyone without receiving a scowl. My wife literally held her head in shame, and each of my kids could not stop laughing, which really did not help. We seriously had to go to another parish. Till this day, my 8-year-old, who is now in his 20s, constantly grabs me and yells out, "I've got you." So overall, this was just entirely embarrassing. This story is really funny. I think from the outside looking in, someone who isn't of someone else's faith would find everything they see around them probably really weird. Whether it's bowing or putting water on their face or anything like that, yeah, it could be seen as really weird from the outside looking in, especially if you haven't grown up in that religion. And I think any religion is guilty of that off the bat. And worst of all, this guy was just trying to do what he thought was the right thing. He saw an old lady potentially falling down and completely eating it on the floor, and he was like, "Nope, not on my watch. I'm ex-military." And I gotta be honest, if I was there, I probably would have started laughing as well. I'm imagining some big burly guy getting the absolute garbage smacked out of him by some little old lady. So the next time he goes back to that church, hopefully he keeps his hands to himself, even if he thought he was trying to do the right thing. I let my coworker sleep on my couch without my girlfriend knowing, and when my girlfriend walked in, she was absolutely upset to find a woman on my couch that she doesn't know. And as a result, my girlfriend is thinking of breaking up with me, and right now I really don't know what to do. So for a bit of backstory, my girlfriend and I have been together for around 4 years. We have had a happy relationship with a few rough patches over the years. We are very intertwined with each other's families and have broken up once before. We plan to move in together in a few months, but my girlfriend has keys to my apartment and spends many days here. Now, she is a nurse and was working the night shift one night ago. I got off work, went back to my apartment, apartment and helped her do some meal prep before she left. I had plans to go out to a brewery with some of my coworkers and friends, but didn't inform my girlfriend about them. I didn't really have an excuse for that, other than not wanting to be judged for going out and drinking so much. And the last time we went out together with them, we got in a fight. So I go out. I continue texting my girlfriend until around 1 in the morning, and my coworker usually stays with another coworker, but didn't want to be a burden on him, so she asked me instead. So I said yes, and we ended up getting pizza and going back to my place to eat and possibly smoke. I couldn't find my stuff, and we both ended up just passing out. Now, my girlfriend comes in at 7:30 in the morning, and she is absolutely livid, and rightfully so. There is a random girl on the couch who she has only met once. Now, I am passed out on the floor of my bedroom, and I have no idea why I'm on the floor. My girlfriend interrogates my friend, who I can only assume is very hungover in the moment, and my girlfriend believes that nothing sketchy happened between us, if you know what I mean. Then my friend leaves, and my girlfriend comes to my room. She asks why on earth I'm on the floor and who in the world is on our couch, and I explained to her that she couldn't drive home and needed a place to crash. Now, this may have been all fine if I had been smart enough to inform my girlfriend ahead of time that I was not only out and about, but also to ask and see how she felt about me letting a girl crash on my couch. And you know what? I was too stupid and I didn't do either of those things. And now, her main gripes are that she thinks I forgot about my girlfriend when I'm drinking, and that I don't care about her, that I don't respect her or our relationship, and that she cannot trust me anymore. She is very upset about all of this, and I have stated multiple times that nothing happened, nor do I want anything to happen with anyone besides my girlfriend. And now she is pretty much leaning towards breaking up. My girlfriend and I drink often and heavily too, so she knows how it is and has done plenty of stupid things while drunk as well. I feel like she is overreacting, but I don't really know. I obviously need to make this up to her, but we have had problems in the past, and it just seems like we continue to have major problems every few months, mainly revolving around one of us drinking just a little bit too much. What should I do? Yeah, I really think the original poster is the jerk in this situation. You really should not have let that woman sleep over at your house. It doesn't matter how inebriated you were, that should not have happened. I mean, just think about if the roles were reversed in this situation. Would you be happy if your girlfriend let some guy that you don't really know that well sleep over at your house? I know if that was me, I would be pretty upset. So I think to some degree you can at least understand where she's coming from. She has every right to be upset with you. So in that regard, I don't think she's overreacting in the slightest. She literally walked in on something that looked really bad. And while yes, you didn't cheat on her, it did look incredibly sketchy. You didn't discuss a girl sleeping over at your place, and it just straight up looks bad. And while you did have positive intentions, there is, in my opinion, no reason for them to stay at your house. I mean, nowadays there are so many ride-sharing options, someone easily could have gotten them home no problem. It's also worth mentioning that yeah, you probably should stop drinking. Like clearly you can't make right decisions when you're inebriated like that, and it's caused this situation altogether. Like even throughout this entire story, you keep saying, oh, it's because I was drunk. Well, if it's because you were drunk, you should probably cut back on drinking. And it's also really sketchy that you would group your girlfriend in with your problem without providing any kind of context. Like you say, oh, we both have a drinking problem, but then you only list all the reasons why you have the drinking problem. Like I would really need a little bit more context just to even come to that similar conclusion. So honestly, some things really do need to change on your end, because otherwise, I honestly don't blame your girlfriend breaking up with you. An entitled Karen freaks out on Valentine's Day because she got a bouquet of flowers that she didn't like. Things got so bad that she threatened to call the police on my dad simply because she was so angry over the flowers she got. But it all backfired on her instantly as karma came in at the right moment and shut her down completely. Here's what happened. So my parents own a flower shop and have run their own shop since before I was born. So as a result, I was pretty much raised in their flower shop. Even as a little kid, I would help out on weekends by sweeping, emptying the trash can, or anything else they had going on. All in all, I really enjoyed it. That is until Valentine's Day rolled around every year. If you talk to anyone in the floral industry, they will tell you that Valentine's Day is a week-long nightmare. Everyone and their brother wants two things specifically. They definitely want red roses and only red roses, and they want it delivered to their significant other on Valentine's Day so they can stay out of the doghouse. The worst is when we would deliver the roses to an office building, which many customers demanded. The kind of woman who has to have roses delivered to their office are usually doing it so they can show off to the other women that they work for. To that particular particular breed, it isn't about the flowers or the love. It's about lording their relationship over the heads of the lesser women. And with that in mind, that's when we had to deal with a Kevin and a Karen. The Kevin in this story is the dumb, well-meaning husband, and the Karen is vicious and cold-hearted. Kevin called in first thing on Valentine's morning. I was answering the phone for my parents, and I was about 15 or 16 at the time. I was also writing down orders for them that they could then fill. When Kevin called, he was tentative and very apologetic about the late order, but rest assured, he didn't want red roses. This was good, because we had been out of red roses for a couple of days. Here's how he explained what he wanted. He said to us, "I want 7 yellow roses and 2 white roses wrapped up. Yellow is my wife's favorite color, and we've been married for 7 years, and the 2 white roses represent our 2 children." On the card, he had me write something along the lines of basically celebrating their 7 years of being together, and how his wife is beautiful, and how he's so happy that she gave him 2 precious daughters. Now, on any other day of the year, this would be a very romantic gesture, but on Valentine's Day, I knew this was going to backfire when he said he had to have them delivered to her office. I already had 4 orders going to that office building, so adding another one to the delivery route was not a problem. I double-checked that he wanted the 7 yellow roses and the 2 white roses, just in case he wanted to change it to a more traditional Valentine's Day dozen. But no, he was insistent that his order was exactly what he wanted and that his wife would love it. So I took his credit card information, I processed the order, and I moved on with my day. Later that day, a very angry-looking woman stormed into the shop, holding a bouquet of, you guessed it, 7 yellow and 2 white roses. Immediately, she demanded to speak to the manager, which was either of my parents. I got my dad and I sat back and just watched. As soon as my dad appeared, she laid into him. She screamed and ranted about how stupid we must all be, because there's no way her husband would do something as stupid as sending yellow and white roses on Valentine's Day. She accused us of cheating her, lying to her husband, and making her look bad. She goes on to say, "All the other women in my office got a dozen red roses in a nice vase. You sent me this garbage of yellow and white ones. They're all wrapped. Who in the world sends wrapped roses on Valentine's Day? You made me look like an absolute fool." My dad tried to calm her down, but it was no good. She then demanded that we refund her husband's money, and so trying to keep the peace, that's exactly what my father did. He found the order slip, refunded every last penny of her husband's order, and then she demanded a free dozen red roses for the inconvenience and the humiliation that we caused her. My dad tried to explain to her that we were totally out of all roses by this point. It was nearly 5 o'clock on Valentine's Day. We had sold our last rose a couple of hours earlier. At this point, another customer came in, so I stepped over to help him out. He was a young guy who looked very desperate. He asked in a very tentative and polite voice if we had any roses left, because he had forgotten Valentine's Day was such a big deal. It was his first Valentine's Day with a girlfriend, and he wanted to do it right. While my father is busy getting yelled at by this entitled Karen and being told that he must be lying, he then overheard this young guy. My dad looks at the guy and says, "Oh, you need some roses?" The guy says, "Yes, please, if you have any. I don't care what color or how many." My dad then looks at this guy and says, "You're in luck. I have 7 yellow and 2 white. They are all yours on the house." And when my dad said this Karen's head looked like it was going to explode. She started screaming, "Oh, no you don't. Those are my roses." But my dad went right back at her. He said to her, "No, they're not yours anymore. You wanted a refund, which I gave you. They are now my roses, and I'm giving them to this nice man." The entitled Karen started screeching, and she said to him, "No, I refuse to not have roses, even yellow ones that are awful. It is Valentine's Day, thank you. Fine, whatever. Process the payment again if you have to, but I'm leaving with those roses." My dad looks at her and says, "No, you're not. Get out of my store now. You aren't welcome here." My dad then proceeded to hand the bouquet, which was still in perfect condition, over to this young man, as well as a box of chocolates for his girlfriend. My dad looks at the guy and says, "Happy Valentine's Day and have a great night with your girlfriend." This entitled Karen then looks at my dad and starts to shout, "I'm calling the police. This is theft." My dad looks at her plain face and says, "Go ahead, but do so from the parking lot. Now get out." The entitled Karen stammered for a moment before storming out. Now, I'm not sure if she actually called the police or anything like that, but thankfully, overall, we never saw her again, which considering her attitude was honestly a really good thing. I think the entitled Karen of this story falls under the category that the original poster described earlier of people who only want wanted these flowers on Valentine's Day so that they could show it off to their coworkers and be like, oh my gosh, look how much my significant other loves me. Like, come on, that's so weird. And this entitled Karen's husband literally asked for this specific thing. He wanted the yellow roses and the white roses wrapped together for his wife. And he even was pretty convinced that she would love what he was giving her. But clearly that backfired pretty quickly. Also, I have to say the original poster's father is awesome. They handled that so well. And all of the karma that you could possibly want towards this Karen came together in such a beautiful way. I mean, what are the chances that someone came in last second looking for flowers and he was able to give them to this guy in spite of this Karen? That is honestly such beautiful karma, and I can't think of a better recipient of that than this entitled Karen. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. An entitled customer announces to the restaurant that I don't care and that I am somehow ruining her birthday simply because somebody in the back messed up her order. And I'm so sick of dealing with entitled jerks all the time in my job. Here's what happened. So this happened the other night. A party of 16 comes in and everyone is nice for the most part. The first couple to get there nonchalantly let me know that they would all be on separate checks. And they then apologize saying, sorry, it's gonna be a pain. And I'm just thinking to myself, great, this is just what I wanted to hear. 16 separate checks. And before I know it, I'm getting drunk orders. I get to this one lady and she orders her drink and says to me, this is my first day in 80 days that I'm drinking. And just because I didn't know what to say, I forced a laugh and I just smile and move to the next person. I take everyone's food order and eventually the food comes out. I'm making sure that everyone's okay. And the same lady lets me know that she hasn't gotten her food yet. I apologize and I let her know that I'm gonna check on it immediately. And I thought that maybe someone just forgot to run it out, but that wasn't the case. It literally had not been made. So I begin to panic and I check the computer. I definitely did ring it in, so the cooks must have overlooked it. So I let them know that I need it on the fly like right now. I go out again to check on everyone, and each time I came out, someone needed something, usually just another drink. The lady that was without her food looks at me with a stupid pout on her face and says to me, it's my birthday and everyone is eating except for me. So again, I just apologize, and she says to me, tell me, was it your fault or theirs? Obviously meaning the kitchen. I'm not really sure what to say, as it really is not my fault, but with that in mind, she probably won't believe me. So again, I just apologize, and I tell her that yes, I rung it in. She just laughs and looks around the table. She then decides to make an announcement on my behalf. She says to everybody at the table that I don't care. And she says this as I'm standing literally right next to her. So I say nothing. I look at her and I walk away to go tell my manager because I have a feeling this lady is going to be an issue. A 17th person of this party of 16 appears at some point, so I take his order. And his food just so happens to be ready at the same time as this other entitled Karen's food. I bring them over at the same time, dropping the man's off first because he is at the other end of the table. In retrospect, I should have dropped hers off first since she had been waiting overall, but oh well. And even when I drop his off first, this entitled Karen yells across the restaurant, even he got food before me? I then drop hers off literally seconds later and just apologize. My manager eventually and finally goes over to talk to them, and apparently the lady was telling her that she just wanted me to care, and it didn't seem like I cared in the slightest, which you know what, she was correct. I did not care. But as a server, you always have to put on a nice face. Apparently, she told my manager that I had an attitude and that I had rolled my eyes. I have never gotten an attitude or rolled my eyes with any customer. I'm a star student of People Pleasing Academy, and I would never roll my eyes of all things, no matter how annoying someone is, because I would like to keep my job overall. The only other interaction I had with this entitled Karen was when I asked if her food was okay, and this was right after she spoke to my manager. She just smiled smugly and replied, yeah, it's great. Eventually, this entitled Karen's food and drinks were taken off the bill, and I've had a lot of rude entitled customers in my day, but this lady literally took the cake. The entitled Karen of this story was being very rude. She didn't get her food on time because somebody messed up in the back, and that negatively affected the server up front. They did their job. They did what they were supposed to do. They put it in the system, and the cooks in the back messed up. And that's one of the hardest things about being a server. Things getting done is literally in the hands of other people who may or may not care. And it sounds like the cooks in this situation definitely did not care. They messed up, and so the server is the one that got chewed out. And who is this server to seriously be like, I just want them to care. Like, I really find that incredibly toxic to do towards a server at a restaurant. Like, they literally are paid to care. They are waiting on you hand and foot, and they're trying to make sure your food is good and on time. This is literally just an extenuating circumstance where it was completely out of their hands. And seriously, in my opinion, after the age of like 21, if you seriously use "it's my birthday" as an excuse to be an obnoxious jerk, you are the one with a problem, in my opinion. This lady was turning 44 years old. Like, seriously, nobody cares. And in my opinion, you can't use that as an excuse just to treat everybody around you like garbage. An entitled customer leaves a horrible review for me, all because I told them that we couldn't serve any more drinks after 9 p.m. And as a result, my manager turns on me and tries to pull me into a disciplinary meeting, claiming that I didn't do my job properly. And I've never been more frustrated in my life. Here's what happened. So I literally just experienced one of the most infuriating and irritating experiences I have ever come across in my 5 years as a server. So to set the scene, it's a Thursday night, and 3 of us are on shift for the whole restaurant, including the bar. We close our kitchen and bar at around 9 p.m., give or take maybe 15 minutes, but people are free to order desserts and stay as long as they'd like, because desserts are just taken from a box, and it's rude to just kick people out. We also close them at this time because sanitizing the area and doing stock and closing procedures takes absolutely the longest time ever. It says on our website and Google that the business closes at this time, so people are fully aware. A table of 6 came in that had booked ahead of time at around 8 p.m. My manager then lets me know 5 minutes before that they'll be closing the bar at 9 p.m. and that I should go to the tables and ask whether they'd like to make any drink orders before we do. It's very standard procedure, and it's something we do for everybody. I mean, most tables have almost finished anyways, so they either don't mind or they give me their last orders. But when I get to this table, whose wine bottle was mostly full anyways, they look at me entirely shocked. They ask me if I'm being serious and tell me it's ridiculous. I apologize to them, and I tell them that I'm very happy to help them out for the next 10 minutes, but it's out of my hands. They then start telling me that we should be serving drinks until our liquor license says so, which they know is 11 p.m. I leave to get dessert menus for them, and when I come back, the guy apologizes and asks if I'm okay. I relax a bit, and I'm thinking that it's over, but that is a huge mistake. It's not. They ask me, what if we want a dessert wine? I reply that unfortunately, no drinks are available at any table. The bar equipment is sanitizing as we speak, and our official closing time is 9 p.m., which they were told on the booking. They tell me it's horrible business practice, and they'll leave this in their review. I tell them they are free to do so, and there's nothing I can do to change the time that we close our services. They then call me a liar, and that they don't want to have to pay any service charges or leave a tip. I mean, I get like 5% on their service charge anyways, and they're saying they don't want to do this because I'm lying to them. Now, I do not get paid enough to lie to you and put myself through grief. So I tell my manager that they've asked to have it removed, and when she asks why, I explain, and instead of speaking to them, she gives them an extra 20% off. Fast forward, and they seriously leave a 3-paragraph review the next day, calling me rude for not being accommodating. And here's the part that is seriously the most infuriating. They mentioned that they didn't even want any more drinks in the first place. They were just offended that they couldn't have any if they wanted to, and that I wouldn't make an exception for them. The assistant manager had to literally talk to the manager and talk them out of calling me into a disciplinary meeting because I was literally just doing my job, and I know for a fact that I did nothing wrong. Those customers are awful. They just literally wanted to feel special and feel like they could get some kind of exception. Like, how dumb do you have to be? And it really makes that 3-paragraph review just completely pointless. They're making up all these horrible things, and they're not actually offended by something that the server did. They're just mad that they didn't get their way, which is totally unfair for the server. They didn't do anything wrong. They were just doing their job. And what kind of manager would just be like, all right, just give them 20% off. Also, you're in trouble for doing this. Like, what? They didn't do anything wrong. What are you talking about? The server literally did exactly what they were supposed to do. They told him that the bar was closed, and they asked him if they had any other drinks they wanted to get. And that was that. I mean, there's no reason to punish this person simply because there was a bad outcome. So overall, it really sounds like the original poster just has a really awful manager, and it sounds like that's just not a good working environment. And trust me when I say this, you did not fail. But in fact, it's your manager that completely failed you and the restaurant. My boyfriend is asking me to work 3 days of hard work at his food truck truck without compensating me in the slightest. And I feel like he really doesn't appreciate me, and he's being really ungrateful of my help, and I seriously don't know what to do. So I've been with my boyfriend for over 2 years now. We love each other a lot, we make each other laugh every day, and are planning to move in together this year. My boyfriend owns a food truck and is very passionate about his food. When we first met, he was only cooking at home and was very apprehensive about having his own business. I've encouraged him over the last year while helping him apply for a license, helped him search for a truck, and over the last year, he has slowly grown a name for himself in the industry, and I'm so proud of him for following his dream and going for it. He was just accepted to one of the largest food truck festivals in the US, which is huge for him, not only in the money, but the exposure as well. It's difficult to get accepted, and I'm extremely proud of him. When discussing the festival with the festival showrunners, they stated that most vendors in the festival make about $7,000 in the 3 days that it's going on. The festival goes from the morning all the way until late into the night for 3 days straight. The truck is hot, the work is busy and non-stop. And I mean, it is work. Most weekends, I've helped him in the truck taking orders, helping any way I can, but this is much bigger and much longer than anything I've helped with before. In the year he's had this business, I've never asked him for any sort of payment because I've been happy to spend time with him and help out. It honestly hadn't even crossed my mind. Since this is a much bigger event and for 3 days, I have to take 2 days off of PTO from work just to help out. When I mentioned to my friends about the festival, they asked how much he was going to pay me, and I said he wasn't. They then said that he should be paying me something, or at least giving me something as a thank you. Recently, he got a new electric neck fan, which is a fan that hangs off your neck and it blows air into your face. And he has this for the food truck festival since it's going to be really hot. I asked if he got me one as well, and he said no. Now, I couldn't help but feel unappreciated as I'm also in the hot truck working for hours just like he is. And the neck fan is like, what, $20 maximum? I mean, come on. When the festival came up, I asked if he could buy us a couple's massage for the day after the festival, since we would have sore muscles from working, and it's something we've discussed for a long time about doing together. He said to me, what about dinner instead? Now, as some clarification, dinner to my boyfriend is not some fancy restaurant. It's a diner or a deli. I felt really dejected again, and I just felt unappreciated. My friends are saying that if it were them, they would insist on being paid for 3 days of hard work, or at the very least, be given a massage that would cost $200 max. When thinking about it, if the situation were reversed, I think I would offer my helper, girlfriend or not, a cut of the profits, since they are working as well. I don't want to get into a fight, but I also want to be respected and appreciated for my time and work. So am I being greedy for demanding to be compensated? What's the best way to go about doing this without us fighting? What should I do? First off, you need to understand that this is not a charity. You are taking time off of work to help him out with this, and with that, you absolutely expect some kind of compensation. And yes, you love helping out and spending time with him and getting to know him and seeing what he's passionate about. But that doesn't mean that you should have to sacrifice your time at work just to help him out for free on the weekend, regardless of what the event is. Like, think about it. He is asking you to take time off work and use up some of your PTO days, while also asking you to work long, hot hours in the kitchen, which is physically demanding. I mean, this is going to be very uncomfortable for several hours, and he's not working for free, so why on earth should you be expected to work for free? That is not fair in the slightest, and he seriously should be compensating you. So I really think he needs to understand where you're coming from. And you could do this in such a way where it's kind and nice and you're not being aggressive. Also, this guy's 31 years old. How does he not know that this is something you should pay someone for? And he is overall being very inconsiderate and ungrateful of her volunteering to help him out. And you can bet if you didn't show up to this event, he would be by himself facing all these people trying to get all this stuff done. So honestly, I hate to say it, but not only is he taking advantage of your service and your willingness to help out, but I think he actively knows it. I think he knows that he's taking advantage of you and that he sees you as free labor, which you absolutely don't have to be. You could even take the angle of being like, look, I'll happily help out, but I can't afford to take off PTO days and not get paid for this. I need some kind of financial compensation, and I need to make money from this, otherwise I simply can't do it. But however you decide to approach this, hopefully he sees where you're coming from, because that's going to be a lot of hard work for you to do for free. An entitled Karen stays at our restaurant for 6 hours, drinking throughout the entire day and getting more and more aggressive as time goes on. But after she she orders one final cup of coffee to go and has to pay $2 for it, this entitled Karen freaks out and claims that she's gonna put us out of business, all because we tried to charge her for something that she ordered. Here's what happened. So this is from a long time ago when I was still serving in a restaurant, but this story of mine came up yesterday, so I thought I would share it online. This particular tale took place while I worked at a casual fine dining chain restaurant. I came in for the dinner shift, and I inherited a camper. She had had lunch with a few of her lady friends around 12:30 p.m., but they had all left, and she stayed to have a couple more glasses of wine. My shift started at 4:30 p.m., so she had already been there for 4 hours. When I took her table over, the day server said that she already paid up, so I essentially was just waiting for her to leave. By this point, it's now 5 o'clock p.m. The dinner rush is starting, and her glass of wine is empty. She orders another and asks for the bill with it, which is no problem. It's not crazy busy yet, so I can get her the glass of wine and she can just pay. Fast forward to 6 p.m. and we're packed now, and she is still here. I'm asking her if she needs anything, and she asks for a cup of coffee and the bill yet again. So I get the cup of coffee and the bill and I drop it off at her table. It's important to know that up until this point, she had not shown any signs of intoxication. She just quietly sat sipping her wine and being on her phone. But this is when the garbage hits the fan. She starts telling me to get her exact change because there's no way that she's tipping me. Then her rage starts to build up until she's screaming at me about how dare I charge her for that cup of coffee. Don't I know who she is? She was claiming that I should have just let it slide, considering she's been there for 6 hours and I should have known she needed a coffee. And she should not have even had to ask me in the first place. She claims that she needs the coffee to drive home. I take this for a minute or two and then I say to her, "Ma'am, I'm sorry you feel this way, but if you think you need a coffee to drive, then maybe you shouldn't be driving." And as you can probably imagine, when I say this escalates intensely. Her voice reaches nails on the chalkboard level, and then she shouts out, "I want to talk to your manager." Sure, lady, I don't get paid enough to deal with this garbage. I'll happily get the manager. My poor manager steps in and now stands there getting utterly berated by this woman, who's now showing her all the accounts and websites that she's going to rate us poorly on. She says she'll put us out of business. No one will ever eat here again. She also keeps throwing in that she's some important person who knows people that work in the hospitality business, and this is all in some supposed big shot hotel. During this time, I'm calling a cab. My manager isn't even trying to calm her down at this point. Nothing that we will say or do will heal the mortal wound that we have to deal with after we charged her $2 for a coffee, which obviously at this point we didn't care if she would pay for it. The whole restaurant is watching the show, and we literally just wanted her gone. She finally finishes up her red-faced screaming fest and heads for the door, and this is right where I'm waiting. I look at her and I say, "Ma'am, we've ordered you a cab," and that's when her rage falters for a moment. I look at her and I say, "We understand you're upset, and you've had a lot to drink. We cannot in good conscience allow you to drive home, and this is out of concern for your safety." Now my face is perfectly concerned and serene, but hers is red and splotchy. She storms over to the cab without a last word because maybe she knew in the moment that she actually shouldn't be driving. Maybe she was too angry or drunk to realize that she chose the cab. Either way, I never saw when she came back to her car, and I never saw the copious amounts of bad reviews that she loudly promised us. And no, the restaurant never went out of business, especially not for charging someone for a coffee that they obviously ordered. Honestly, who stays at a restaurant for 6 hours? Like, this lady either had nowhere to go or she was down on her luck and she just wanted to get plastered. Like, seriously, the longest I will be at a restaurant is maybe an hour and a half if I'm pushing it. And that's also if I really want to be there. But most of the time, I'm there like what, maybe 45 minutes to an hour tops? Like, what was this lady doing all day besides just getting completely drunk? And she's been paying for her drinks all throughout the day. I mean, what changed when you had to pay $2 for a coffee? Is that really breaking the bank and breaking your psyche? Like, come on. And it's also comical that she tried to say, "I'm gonna put you out of business," all while waving her phone around with all these websites and accounts that she has. Like, seriously, that's just petty. I know if I was in the original poster's shoes and somebody did that, I probably would just laugh in their face. I don't know if I could just keep that in. So hopefully this entitled Karen never comes back, because her behavior was absolutely ridiculous. And in my opinion, she absolutely should be banned from the restaurant. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My husband met a a nurse at a hospital, and I don't know how to feel about it because he's clearly looking her up online, and it's really started to bother me. Here's what happened. So I first want to say that this happened about 2 months ago. My husband's niece and sister had been in the hospital for over 2 weeks due to a house fire, and I will say that the both of them are thankfully fine. I never got to go because of my work schedule and taking care of our son. While he was there, he met one of his niece's primary nurses. Apparently she was cool, and they were into a lot of the same stuff. Mind you, he was there for quite some time, obviously due to the circumstances. I didn't know about him meeting this nurse, except for the fact that he said earlier on that people there were nice and they were doing a good job. Fast forward to when they're almost about to be released, I go out of work and I called him and I asked how everything was going because he was still at the hospital. He gave me the updates and we were just having a general discussion about what to have for dinner. He then says the following: "I feel like I can't ever make new friends that are girls without feeling guilty because I know how you would feel about it. So it makes me uncomfortable even having a conversation. When I would start thinking, hey, they'd make a good friend, I feel bad because I know they wouldn't actually ever be able to be my friend because I know that wouldn't make you happy, even though it's more of a you thing. I'm different than you because if you met a guy, I would be fine with you guys being friends. So it just feels like you don't trust me." Now, when he said this, I told him this was all very all of a sudden, and I asked him where this was all coming from. I asked him if he had met a nurse there, and he said yes, and that what he said is an example of it. Now, I don't mind him having friends that are girls. I really don't. He has a bunch, and it's all people who he's known since like the 8th grade. Plus, some of the friends are girls that he works with. So I have no problem with it. To me, it's all about how the friendship begins. How I feel is that there's no reason for her to be in his life other than for that time. I just wouldn't be comfortable with them just hanging out all together by themselves. Besides, having common interests, laughs, and all those things, I just don't see how it would be needed for him. He already has a ton of really close friends. I also know he would never be okay with me being like, hey, I met a guy and we hit it off as friends and we exchanged numbers. Like, no, it's just honestly hurtful. Maybe I'm out of pocket for thinking this way, but he's married to me. Like, what am I not fulfilling in your life that you feel the need to find elsewhere? Or what's so great about her that you have to and want to have her in your life so bad? I'm not saying that she's not cool. I'm sure she's super sweet. I'm just not sure what to think of the situation. Anyways, all this happened about 2 months ago, and tonight and yesterday, I looked through his phone. I know this isn't very trustworthy or cool of me, but nonetheless, I did it. The nurse was in the search bar. Not only is she completely his type, but she has a bunch of revealing photos on her page, which is good for her. I'm not putting her down or anything like that. But my problem is that he had searched for her multiple times. Like, he's continuously gone back to her page. She's beautiful and much prettier and fit than me. I'm also curious as to how he found her Instagram. Like, did he stalk her Facebook and go through a bunch of people just to find her? Also, why did he need to do this? I get maybe wanting to see if she's doing okay since their encounter, and maybe that's all it was. But I don't know, I just feel sad and hurt, and I honestly feel like I'm not enough. And now I'm wondering if he was flirting with her at the hospital and started feeling guilty because he knew what he was doing wasn't cool, and then in return made it about how I'm the problem because I won't let him have new girlfriends or something like that. I don't know. Am I completely overreacting? Is this really nothing and I'm making it bigger than it needs to be? What should I do? I think it's really super sketchy that he's searching up this nurse and that he did this multiple times at that. And it also does kind of connect the dots that he's trying to shift the blame on you by saying something to the effect of, oh, well, you just never let me have friends who are girls. Like, no, that's not what's going on here. I mean, it really does kind of add up that yes, he definitely has some kind of interest in this woman, but that might be as far as it went because from the sounds of it, all he really did was look up her profile a few times. It doesn't really look like he's talked to her or flirt with her, or at least you don't have any evidence of that in the first place. And in my opinion, if you don't have that solid evidence saying, hey, you're clearly taking things too far and you've crossed a line that we need to talk about, I personally would just not want to jump to some conclusion that would cause some kind of rift between the two of you. So hopefully when you talk to him about this, he can understand where you're coming from, because it sounds like there's a lot of insecurity that you have about this lady and you feel like you're the odd one out. Today, I messed up by waking up mid-dental procedure and proceeding to try and fight the entire dental staff, and I've never been more embarrassed in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so before I go any further, I want to first start off by explaining that as a foster child, I had an extremely awful experience with a particular dentist. He was very mean and he always hurt me, and I didn't really have anyone to turn to because my foster parents either didn't care or didn't believe me. As a result, I have extreme anxiety about going to the dentist, and I generally prefer to get completely put out for anything more major than a filling rather than sit there for hours having an anxiety attack. Now, this isn't my first experience of reacting wildly to sedatives, but it is my most embarrassing one for sure. There were no outbursts the last time I was sedated at the dentist, although I did keep waking up and trying to vape until they took my vape away from me. I was told I accepted this readily, so I didn't make a fuss and I just laid back down. Also, previously, after a knee surgery, I found my phone on the ride home and I texted a few of my more shiftless coworkers and I told them exactly what I thought of their efforts. Luckily, we're all friends and I'm not the hold back anything kind of guy, so they'd already heard it all before. They just thought it was hilarious and made fun of me about it for a couple of months. In reality, when I'm not full of sedatives, I'm not the same jerk, and I'm more likely to offer help than complain or judge, even if I do talk garbage while I do it. Unfortunately, today's experience might take a little bit more walking back on my part. This time turned out a little different. In fact, maybe a lot different, because this time I really messed up. Before the procedure, I tried to remind them that it takes a surprising amount of sedatives to keep me unconscious, but they decided to be safe and just go with the minimum to start with. This meant I wasn't fully out, but I was chill enough to just zone out to music and mostly not mind what was happening, at least until the point that I decided I did mind. In fact, I minded very much. After a little while of dozing in and out of twilight sleep, the dentist started doing some weird thing where he would jerk on my cheek very hard as he pierced my gum and jaw with what felt like a needle. Later, they explained this as a distraction from the pain since he was using a syringe to inject local anesthetic. But at this moment, it didn't matter what he was doing. I had had enough. I suddenly jerked my head a little bit when he jerked my cheek for the 4th or 5th time, and the needle went into the tip of my tongue, instantly numbing one side of my tongue. Really, it was my own fault, but I was in no condition to accept that. I don't really know what I thought in the moment, but I know that I was not thrilled. I pushed my very kind dentist and at least one other person away from me. I stood up and I started yelling and swearing at everyone, swaying around drunkenly, screaming God knows what. I was so dizzy. I'm not sure if I understood what was happening at all. I edged my way around the room until my back was against a wall so no one could sneak up on me. By now, there was an uproar, and probably 5 or 6 staff members were there in front of me with wide eyes and hands held out in front of them, begging me to chill out. I have no idea what I was saying, but I ranted the entire time, a good few minutes at least. I know I said I was upset, but there's no reason to jerk on my cheek if I'm sleeping, because if I'm sleeping, you don't have to disguise the pain, and anyways, I'm 40 years old. You're not fooling me. Just give me the shot and save your cheek pulling games for children. At one point, the very sweet technician asked me if I had had caffeine or Adderall or any other kind of stimulants in the last 24 hours that would keep me awake. This also offended me for some reason, so I started ranting about that too, and I did this quite loudly at that. On and on I went, backed up against the wall with my fists up in front of me, swaying like an alcoholic. There was a wedge in my mouth, holding my teeth apart that at some point I took out and threw away myself. I was still attached to the blood pressure machine and I was jerking it around. Someone had to hold on to it to keep it from tipping over. All in all, it was very, very ugly. Eventually, the reality of the situation started to dawn on me. I realized that I was surrounded by dental staff who were 75% kindly older women, all of them watching with horrified expressions as I reeled around drunkenly, bouncing my 250-pound frame around and screaming blearily from behind clenched fists. As it dawned on me, I calmed down, and because I actually like them all very much, and they're always kind to me, I was able to pull it together and sit back down. They gave me more sedative, and eventually I passed back out, and by the time I woke up, it was time to go home. I didn't really remember a single thing about the appointment in that moment. I was just ready to go home and go to bed for a few hours. Fast forward to the evening, and I'm now finally sober enough to process thoughts. I just got a voicemail from the dentist about 12 hours later, very cautiously inquiring into my well-being, which brought that flood of half memories back to my mind. I am very embarrassed. This is my first dentist that I have had as an adult, as well as my first dentist that I returned return to, and I was really hoping for it to be my last dentist as well. Hopefully they take me back. I plan to go down there tomorrow with some flowers and a very heartfelt apology, and hopefully they'll make note of it in my chart to throw in a little extra sedative next time they have to put me out. That really is an awful situation. You already have some very serious problems when it comes to going to the dentist based on previous experiences as a child, so I really can understand where you're coming from, where you would freak out and start acting really crazy, even though you were kind of under the influence of the sedative and you weren't completely out in the way that you hoped they would have done. So I think apologizing to them really would be a good idea, but you also need to understand that you're probably not the first and you definitely won't be the last person to ever act like that at the dentist. I think they probably understand that you weren't completely all there and you were just acting on instinct based on what was going on around you. So I just wouldn't beat yourself up over this. I really would not consider this your fault, and I think having an honest heart-to-heart with the dentist would probably clear all of this up pretty quickly. My girlfriend and I have 2 different weddings that we want to attend for people that really mean a lot in our lives, and those weddings happen to fall on the same day, and now I'm not sure which wedding I should go to and how I should approach the situation. Here's what happened. So I realized that my girlfriend's best friend's wedding and one of my good college friends' weddings fall on the same weekend. Now, I had wanted to go to my friend's wedding. I booked a hotel, told my friends I'd be there, but I had not yet RSVP'd. Then about 2 months ago, we realized both weddings were on the same weekend. I wanted to go to my friend's wedding, and my girlfriend is 100% going to hers and wants me to come along with her since it is her best friend. Then I told my girlfriend I was leaning towards going with her to her friend's wedding, but now I'm having second thoughts. I never told my friend I wouldn't be going to his, and I also led my mutual friends to believe that I'd be at his wedding. For context, my girlfriend and her friend have been very good friends since childhood and became best friends in college. There's some family history too, as their grandfather were best friends, and my girlfriend's parents are going to the wedding as well. My friend and I are relatively close, and we have what I'd call a meaningful relationship. He's my fraternity brother, and I've known him for about 10 years. We live in the same city, and he's one of my good friends in the city, but we don't talk weekly or anything like that. I see him once a month or so. My girlfriend and I go to shows with him and his fiancé together on occasion, and the both of us share a lot of common interests. There are people I'm friends with in the city who I really wouldn't care if we grew apart, but he isn't one of them. He's a good friend, and I've confided in him about things that I haven't felt comfortable telling other friends. This is tough for me because I have 3 weddings of fraternity brothers coming up. If this wedding conflicted with either of the other 2, I would pick my girlfriend's friend's wedding over them. However, I feel like this particular wedding is different, and that my friendship with him is different and far more meaningful than the other 2. For context, I talk to the other 2 guys maybe a couple of times a year. One lives in my city and the other does not. Now, my girlfriend's argument for why it's so important for me to be at her friend's wedding is that she knows with near 100% certainty that her friend and fiance will be in our lives forever. My girlfriend and I have been together on and off for almost 6 years. We don't currently live in the same city as them, but they are still very good friends. She doesn't know with certainty that my friend and his fiance will be in our lives together, and I guess I don't either, which I suppose is fair, but who knows? Nothing in life is certain, in my opinion. My girlfriend said me missing her friend's wedding would be like her missing the wedding. I've known her friend in some capacity for as long as I've known my girlfriend. Same thing with my girlfriend knowing my friend. I'm not directly friends with her, but I like her and her fiance, and could see myself as being lifelong friends with them as long as my girlfriend wants to. Comparing my girlfriend's friendship to mine and my friends, I'd say they are best friends, while my friend and I are good friends with a meaningful relationship. The whole situation gives me a ton of anxiety. The idea of picking one wedding over the other, wondering what if it doesn't work out with my girlfriend? Will I regret not going to my friend's wedding? Will my friend be mad at me for not telling him sooner? Should I be going to my friend's wedding instead of my girlfriend's wedding? With all these questions in mind, I've been avoiding it all. I always do stuff like this, and I dig myself into a deeper hole than I otherwise would have been in because the anxiety caused me to shut down. I feel like an idiot. And now the wedding is a month away. I haven't reserved anything to my friend, and he texted me yesterday asking if I got the invite and if I was planning on bringing my girlfriend. I nearly had a panic attack when I got the text message. Now, my friend is pretty understanding, but I feel like declining his wedding invite a month out might just test the limits of that understanding with him and my other friends. I don't know. I would also inevitably upset my girlfriend girlfriend for changing my mind and putting her in a tough spot a month before her friend's wedding. I really feel like I messed this one up, and I seriously don't know what to do. In my opinion, I don't think there's any reason why you couldn't go to this wedding and your girlfriend goes to the other one. You both have good reasons to go to your weddings, and it's just unfortunate that they fell on the same weekend. They are just weddings after all, and I honestly think you're overthinking this and she is overreacting from it. Like, this is literally a situation where there's nothing you can do, and I think going to one or the other exclusively is only going to make somebody upset. But what isn't happening is not making a decision. You need to sit there and say, okay, I'm either going to my girlfriend's thing or I'm going to the wedding that my friend is having. Make a choice. Putting it off is not going to do any good for you, and it's only going to cause you problems if you sit there and do nothing. My entitled, spiteful fiance tries to make it look like her best friend husband is cheating, all as some kind of weird, complicated revenge scheme for something that was honestly so minimal. And now I'm considering breaking up with her after seeing this level of craziness over something so minimal, and I seriously don't know what to do. So a little over a year ago, my fiance attended a hiring event for an office job with one of her friends from high school, and she said it would be fun to work together. I also have an office job, but it's in a different company. They both received the job and seemingly enjoyed working together, and they would often go out afterwards if their shifts lined up. A few weeks ago, Sarah applied for a vacancy as a supervisor. Sarah is my fiance, and Sarah is not her real name, but unfortunately she did not receive it as someone else got it. She said that to her friend Jane, also not her real name, who shared in her disappointment, and they've been friends longer than we've known each other, going all the way back to high school. And that fact in and of itself is honestly why I was so surprised by Sarah's behavior. Sometime after the vacancy had passed, Jane told Sarah that she was accepted for a government job she applied for over a year ago. But when Sarah asked why she didn't tell her, she said she applied for it around the same time that Sarah applied for the office job, among many others. And also that the government openings are sometimes posted for a year and take a lot longer just to get back to you. And Jane didn't think that she would get it, but it offered yearly growth in terms of pay grade steps, and she encouraged Sarah to attend an upcoming direct hiring event. But Sarah was not happy about this because she vented to me about it and had some very choice words to say. When I asked why she felt this way, she said that she was hurt that Jane didn't tell her about this and didn't say that she applied, despite calling it a long shot at the time. But when I reminded Sarah that Jane applied for a lot of jobs while also applying for the office job that they got together, she said that she felt betrayed and that she didn't want to talk about her anymore because she wanted some space for herself. She also said that they told each other everything since high school. I also wanted to add that Jane took her out to dinner to console her after she didn't get the promotion, so I thought I would try and do the same thing by ordering from her favorite restaurant just to try and cheer her up. And at the time, Sarah said she appreciated that. But what she did next, after wanting space from Jane, made me reconsider our relationship altogether because I have never seen this side of her ever in my life. Sarah then began signing Jane up for all these spam sites that she had found in a Google search, and she was using Jane's email to sign her up. She eventually also confessed it to me too. Now, I'll get to that later, but what she did next was way worse. Sarah then tried to frame Jane's husband by going to a site that hired entertainment for parties or corporate gatherings and tried to frame her boyfriend for looking up certain types of dancers, if you know what I mean. She used his email when making an account on the site, and she made inquiries asking for quotes while pretending to be her husband. I found out about it when she asked me to do something on her phone, and the site was open in another tab. I asked her about it, and she didn't hide it at all. She literally told me all of this, claiming that it's because Jane betrayed her, and I was honestly stunned when I heard this. When I asked why she thought it was okay to do that, she said she did similar things to people in high school who she didn't speak to anymore because it simply helped her vent. I told her I was pretty disturbed by how calculated it was, and I told her that she needs to confess to Jane for framing her husband as well as potentially causing problems. She said that I was overreacting and that it helped her stay in an even keel, and I never even knew of this secret hobby, as she put it, until right now. She told me to drop it because she barely talks to Jane anymore, but I'm leaning towards calling her myself and confessing what Sarah did to her and what she was trying to do to her marriage. I also know that will probably make Sarah feel like I betrayed her too, but I'm just too stunned by this secret hobby that she claims that she's done to other people that she doesn't talk to anymore. her. I asked her again on a different day to confess, but she said no for the second time and refused to see any fault. She also said that our relationship would be done if I took Jane's side because then it would show I'm not on hers. I just want to ask if I should call Jane firsthand before breaking up with Sarah, as I'm seriously considering doing that. This behavior is honestly so disturbing and I seriously don't know what to do. Your girlfriend is actually crazy. She got upset because her friend got another job without her. That is literally all this is about. And her way of fixing that is to try and ruin this lady's marriage. Like, what in the world is happening? That is such a crazy step in the wrong direction. I really just don't even know what to say. But I think your instincts are correct. You plan on breaking up with her and you want to get away from this crazy toxic behavior because this seriously is not normal. And the sooner you get away from that, I really think the sooner you will be better off. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for yelling at my boss because she tried to blame me for her mistake? So I worked and legally am still working for my former trainer. I'm riding horses and I started learning how to ride a horse 7 years ago on one of her horses. Back then, everything was fine. She was a good teacher and everything, but last summer things started to get messed up. For some context, I started working for my boss as a trainer part-time and made quite a lot of money, but a few months ago, things started to go south. Everything I did was wrong and I was a bad trainer. Once, I accepted a job for some day like a month forward and she didn't give me any details about it until it was hours left before the day I was supposed to be in work. And because I was working when I was needed, I didn't have a set time when I was supposed to be there. So I assumed that she gave that day to a different trainer and just forgot to tell me. So I made plans for that day. And that day in particular was a sunny day. I was in school and I had scheduled a training with my current trainer for tomorrow. And then she texted me in the middle of a lesson that I'm supposed to be at my workplace at the time I had my training scheduled. So I texted her about it, and in my own way, I yelled at her over the text message, and she started blaming it all on me. Later, I called my mom and told her what happened and left things to her, and that was honestly the best thing I could have done. My parents informed me via text messaging, and my mom called me once the things were kind of resolved. My mom called my boss and told her that I can't go to work tomorrow because of my training with a new trainer. And then my boss started to blame it all on me again. But my mom was furious. My mom found out that she was on a vacation and got back that day earlier in the morning and apparently had no time to make a schedule. My mom also told me that when she ended the call, her boss was very surprised because she has never seen her yell like that. That day, I had to cancel my training and go to work. Thankfully, my new trainer had no problem with that, and we had the training next week. Me and my mom reread mine and my boss's agreement about the job, and we found out that the agreement was illegal and that I wasn't supposed to sign it. But we let that, as well as a ton of other things, just slide. Things didn't really end up well, and we didn't break the agreement, so I still legally work for her. But it really begs the question, am I the jerk or is my mom the jerk for yelling at my boss for what she did? I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your boss literally came back and said, okay, time to work. Like she didn't give you any kind of notice or be like, okay, I need you here at this time. Instead, she tried to spring it on you last second, but since you heard nothing, you naturally made other plans. And if I was in your shoes, I would have done the same thing. If anything, your boss is being the jerk. They're being weird about this and they're trying to blame you for something they didn't do. They even admitted that they had no time to do the schedule, even though they got back from vacation and easily could have planned this before their vacation. So I seriously wouldn't worry about this. You and your mom didn't do anything wrong, and honestly, you should just be happy that your mom is looking out for you and making sure that you don't have any trouble. I feel trapped in my relationship with my boyfriend who gets angry over such small things and really will freak out over just about anything. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my boyfriend and I have been together for almost 2 years now. At the start, it was wonderful. He was in a local band and we met at one of his shows. We hit it off instantly and began dating soon after. As a few months went by, he got into problems with his parents and his mother kicked him out for being too violent. He was crying and saying none of it was true, and I believed him and took care of him. He went on to live in a friend's house and didn't have a job for months outside of his band. I paid for everything and tried to look out for him since I knew he was struggling, but despite this, he'd get snappy with me and aggressive. Every fight that we'd have, it'd be him shouting at me and calling me names, and I'd just sit there crying, begging him to stop. Then the next day, it'd go back to normal. About a year ago, a new girl joined their band, and he instantly clicked with them and even went to her house the next day after meeting her to help her practice without telling me. She's the exact opposite of me, but also shares all the interests with him that I don't. To this day, their friendship is still a cause of stress, as he actively hides and lies about messages from her to me, which he admitted to as well, stating that he didn't want me to get anxious about it. But even after he promised not to do it anymore, I still notice him not opening her messages when I'm beside him, but when I leave the room, he does it anyways. He actively asked her to hang out and lies to me about who he's making plans with. He had been texting her late at night whilst I'm on the phone to him. It's driving me insane because I know he's lying, but if I bring it up, it gets twisted to me being crazy. Recently, we got into a fight where it ended with him shouting at me. He said to me, "You never think before you do anything. I swear I'm just gonna snap one day." And when he said this, I felt scared, and I sat there crying and saying I'm sorry. And the reason this fight happened in the first place is because I accidentally banged into him when reaching for my phone, and he was in a bad mood. When I brought it up a week later, he tried to convince me he never said that because he would never say anything like that to me, and that there was no chance he said that because he didn't remember. But then later he says he does remember saying it, but it was only a joke. But I know that it fully wasn't. This is where I just feel so trapped. All my friends are through him. We live in a small town, and I do really love him. I've put all my energy into looking after him, and I'm second guessing myself every day because I keep thinking maybe he's right, and maybe I am overthinking or being crazy. I'm just scared, and I have been in this cycle with him for so long, I don't know what's normal anymore. I've become so depressed and drained recently as a result, but I can't bring myself to leave him because every time I end up getting too emotional and changing my mind. I'm just here as a last resort looking for some advice. What should I do? Your boyfriend sounds like an awful boyfriend. Let me make sure I get this straight. He's texting another girl who you have actively said, "Hey, I don't like that and I don't want you texting her." And now, since he knows that you don't like it, he has to do it behind your back and in secret. Also, as a side note for the listener today, when the boyfriend said, "I'm gonna snap," he also said a veiled threat along with that really raises some red flags. This guy seems like an absolute jerk. He seems very unhinged, and I would hate for him to freak out one day and possibly hurt this person. So if I was in your shoes, all things considered, I would absolutely break up with this guy and get out while I can. For better context, the original poster is 18 and the boyfriend is 19 years old. He does not sound like a stable individual, and I think for your own safety, it would probably be better to at least get some kind of distance from him. Also, your partner is literally gaslighting you and making you second guess yourself on everything. One week he's screaming at you saying he's gonna snap, and then the next week he tries to push it off as some kind of joke. But you know what's actually happening. You know how bad it is, and seriously, you do not deserve this. I went through my fiance's phone while he wasn't looking, and I found out he is actively plotting to cheat on me, and now I seriously don't know what to do. So I really need some advice. I have been sick to my stomach after going through my fiance's phone, and I don't know how I should handle this. We've been together for 5 years and engaged for 1 month. We both live with our families and are saving for a home. For a bit of backstory, in 2021, we both decided to enroll in school. I started my doctorate degree, and he went back to complete his bachelor's. Most of my program is online, so I have made a few new friends. However, it is difficult to form relationships without being in the classroom setting. On the other hand, he is on his campus 4 to 5 days a week and made many new friendships. At first, I was happy for him, but then I became a little bit jealous. The next few semesters, he would make his class schedule so he could spend more time on campus and hang out in the study room with his new friends. He created an Instagram so he could keep in touch with them, even though before this, he used to be so against Instagram as a whole. They even invited him to go out drinking and partying with them. He considered going until I told him that I thought it was a little bit weird for a 35-year-old man to be hanging out with 19 to 22-year-olds. He has gone to dinner with them on 2 separate occasions to celebrate one of their birthdays. Fast forward to this weekend, and I was at his house, and I decided to go through his phone while he was sleeping. It was a big mistake, and I regret doing it. I saw things that dropped my heart into my stomach. The first issue is that he is messaging a girl from his school. He mentioned her when he first started school and said that she sort of resembles what our daughter would look like because she is biracial and we are an interracial couple. He always says, "They're like my kids," because he he is so much older than them. After looking through his phone, he has messages on Snapchat, Instagram, and regular messages with this girl he considers his daughter. All the messages have a flirtatious tone. The girl has sent messages saying, "I missed you," as well as, "I'm working out, how did my butt look today?" He deflects the questions and says things like, "I miss hanging out with the group as well," or saying something like, "I don't look at your butt because you're like a daughter to me." Although he deflected her advances to turn the conversation into a more flirtatious tone, I feel like it's only a matter of time until it goes a little bit further. The next issue I saw was a conversation between my fiancé and his friend that took place in May of 2022. His friend is married, and we even attended his wedding a few years ago. In the messages, they mention how they want to sleep around with a lady of the night, if you know what I mean, and how his friend wants to turn off the Ring camera at his home and cheat on his wife when she leaves to visit her parents. In those messages, my fiancé said that if he lived alone, he would have brought a lady of the night over to his house and spent some quality time with her, if you know what I mean. And when I saw this, that absolutely broke my heart. During that time, we were very busy with work and had finals for school, so we couldn't see each other for like 5 weeks. He always came off as very understanding of our busy schedules and would always reassure me that although we couldn't be together every day, our love would carry us through. I sobbed for 2 days straight after going through his phone. I always felt like we had a fairy tale love and that we were perfect for each other. Now, I feel like I don't even know who I am dating, and it all has been a lie. I know I shouldn't have snooped through his phone. We've been engaged for less than a month, and I don't know how I should handle this situation. Should I bring this up and admit that I went through his phone? Is ending my engagement too extreme? I can't speak to my family about this, because if I decide to stay, I don't want this to ruin their relationship with him. Every time he says, "I love you, I miss you," or hugs and kisses me, I feel like he is just a big fat liar. Where do I even go from here? What should I do? If I was in your shoes, I would be thinking twice about this marriage. This guy was plotting to cheat on you, and he was sending this actively to his friends. And this is in advance to your wedding, and I am right there with you. There is no reason that your fiancé should be messaging these women. And the second they started to make advances of them asking, "How does my butt look?" that's when all communication should have stopped, and he should have been like, "Hey, this is weird and this is not what I want. This is going in a direction that violates my future marriage." I know if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely bring this up and be like, "Hey, yeah, I looked through your phone, feel free to be mad, but you were actively trying to cheat on me. Like, are you serious right now?" Because this is a conversation that needs to happen, like right away in my opinion. Like, yes, snooping is wrong to an extent, but what he is doing is way worse than anything you did. So hopefully things work out, and you're able to find some kind of solution to this situation, because your fiancé is being super sketchy, and you do not deserve this in the slightest. My mom controls the majority of my finances, and despite my asking, she does not let me have any access to it and makes financial decisions for me on my behalf without asking me first, and I seriously don't know what to do. Now, to preface this, I want to say that I have 2 part-time jobs where I make about $700 a month, and I still live at home because I'm a full-time student. So as the title states, my mom controls my saving and spending accounts because my bank accounts are just under her name, while I have access to view the balances. When I get paid, she usually takes money out of my paycheck and puts it into my savings. I don't entirely have a problem with that, but she doesn't tell me when she takes money out of my spending account and puts it into my savings. In addition, I am locked out of my savings account. I can only view the balance. I can't deposit money into my savings, nor can I take any amount out. I always have to ask her for my own money back, and even then, she doesn't always give me that money. As spoiled as this sounds of me, my parents won't even let me pay my own phone bill, despite me having the income to do that because my phone is registered under my mom's name. I will admit I spend my money on some unnecessary things, but I never let my account balance go below $150 before the next payday. Again, I get paid like $300 per day if I'm lucky, and I've put off buying clothes and shoes just because I know at any point my mom could take my money away from me. My parents are constantly pushing me to be responsible with my finances, but I don't think I even have the opportunity to prove responsibility because of how much money is constantly taken out of my reach. I literally just turned 20 years old, and when I deposited $250 in birthday money through an ATM so that I could buy a new pair of shoes and some clothes, I had it taken away and put in my savings on that same day without being told. And that was just my breaking point with this situation. My friends have suggested I create my own own bank account since I am an adult. And as much as I would like to do that, I have over $12,000 in savings that only my mom has control of. And I don't even know how I would convince her to give me that money to put in a new bank account. Along with that, my mom works at the same bank that my money is under, and the location she works at is a branch that I would have to visit to speak with a financial advisor. The financial advisors would end up being my mom's coworker and a family friend, and I don't know if personal conflicts or their working relationship with my mom would get in the way of my autonomy over my money, even though I know they can't do that to me legally. If I had even a sliver of control over my finances, I wish that I could just emphasize that I do have a solid plan with what I want to do with my money, and that I wouldn't just blow through all my money and savings because I want to move out at some point, even though I live in a nightmare city in terms of affording the cost of living. How should I go about this situation? Should I make my own bank account? And even if I did, what would I do afterwards? What should I do? I would absolutely already be making a bank account for myself. If I was 20 years old and my mom was restricting what money I could and couldn't spend, as well as not allowing me to access my savings, I would be freaking out. There's no way I would allow that for a second. So yes, you absolutely should go into another bank and make another account. And I say another bank. I personally would not go to the one your mom works at. That would be really weird, and yeah, I can see a lot of the roadblocks that would come up, as well as the anxiety that you could possibly feel in this regard. So literally just take your next paycheck and put it into a new bank account. You can probably also set up direct deposit on this new account, so your mom would literally never have any access to it ever again. Because even though you say you have like what, $12,000 in your savings, you technically don't have any money because your mom is not allowing you to access that money. Even just when it comes to managing it yourself, you earned that, she did not. And it sounds like this is an account that you had when you were younger and you are just now basically becoming an adult and trying to maintain your own situation. So hopefully you can get that figured out sooner than later, because that money is yours and you have every right to have access to it. My entitled sister tries to falsely accuse me of buying drinks for her party, and after I'm proven innocent, my mom demands that I take the fall for it just so her favorite child, my sister, doesn't have to go to jail. And I am still blown away by this level of entitlement, as well as the actions of my mom and my sister. Here's what happened. So this happened some years ago. I'm in my 30s now, but back then I was 22. My sister was 18 and was my mom's golden child. My dad thankfully has a good head on his shoulders and always called my sister out on her garbage. But my mom's interference always meant my sister got off easy anyways. This is what happened back then. My parents decided to take a vacation to ski in Aspen and let my sister watch the house for them. They told her no parties, but that was a rule she straight up ignored. A day after our parents left, my sister started sending out invites to a party, and she was promising free alcohol. Now, I didn't see that post yet, but my sister called me and asked me to go get alcohol for her party because I was over 21 and I could legally buy it. She also wanted me to pay for it and said she'd invite me to the party, as well as introduce me to an easy girl in order to pay me back. I told her that I wasn't going to break the law to make her happy. She should have never told people that her party would have alcohol. She screamed at me over the phone that I was ruining her life and that she couldn't take back the invites now that they were all over Facebook. I looked at her post and I facepalmed. I told her that what she did was really stupid and she and her friends were all underage, so it's illegal. She then tried to say that it would only be illegal if I narked on them. I said I wouldn't narc, but I wasn't going to buy her any alcohol either. She screamed at me some more, and so I just hung up the phone. Well, that night my sister had the party, and someone called the police for underage drinking. After being arrested and confronted by the police later on, my sister threw me under the bus and said that I'd supplied the alcohol that she was using. It turns out she actually broke into my dad's liquor cabinet and thought it would be better to frame me for her crime. The police came and arrested me at my apartment the day after the party. They seemed already convinced I was guilty and didn't really listen to me when I said I was never there, but I willingly cooperated with them. At the station, I told them the whole story, and I got them to look at my sister's Facebook post. Thankfully, there were a few people there who listened to me, but I still had to sit the night out in a cell while my parents were called. My mom and dad flew back home overnight and bailed out both my sister and myself, but my mom tried to make my dad leave me in jail because my sister had told them her lies as well. But my dad took the time to talk to me and look at my sister's Facebook post. So he believed me. This caused a fight between him and my mom, and when they got home, my dad discovered my sister had broken into his liquor cabinet and spoke to the police on my behalf. My mom, however, still wanted the blame to fall on me because, as she put it, the charges were ruining her baby's future. But my innocence was further proven by the fact that I and my car were seen on CCTV when I left work, and when I arrived home soon after, as the apartment I was living in then had CCTV cameras to watch the parking lot, and my car did not move from there for the rest of the day, as well as the night. In my sister's story to the police, I had driven out and gotten alcohol for her, but I wasn't seen on camera in any liquor store in the county, and my bank account showed no transactions buying alcohol. My parents' house also had a camera at the front door, and my car was never seen in the driveway that day. After being confronted with all those facts, my sister's story changed to saying that I had already had the alcohol and I gave it to her at my apartment. But my sister's car had never shown up at my apartment either, and there was like 3 cheap beers in my apartment fridge at that, and no hard alcohol. My sister finally had to give up on her lies, and my parents were severely disappointed in her. But my mom still tried to convince me to take the fall for my sister. She came to my apartment and actually demanded that I tell the police that it was my fault. I said I wasn't going to ruin my future for my sister. She refused to leave and went from demanding to begging. She even got on her knees and tried to convince me that she and my dad would make everything okay in the long run. I just had to take the blame right now. I said I'd rather live my life poor than have that felony on my record. She then threw a huge fit and started throwing things because I refused to do as she wanted. I threatened to call the police, and she left my apartment cussing me out like a mad woman. I've never heard so many curse words out of her before or since, but she kept them up all the way to her car and followed it up by saying that she wished she never had me, all before driving off. I called my dad right away and told him everything that happened. He was insanely upset and got in a huge fight with my mom as soon as she got home. She didn't even deny anything she said or did because she deemed it would have been for the greater good of their daughter. But my dad told her that she couldn't destroy me to save my sister. Then he threatened to divorce her if she didn't try to make things right. She ended up sobbing and then said that she would do whatever he wanted. My dad said that it was couple and family counseling or it was a divorce. My mom signed a prenup before she married him and really had no choice. In the family counseling, I called her out on how she always believed my sister's lies. My sister tried to say they were not lies, but each one I pointed out from over the years said otherwise. I had taken the time to write a list of all the ones I could remember from the past decade that had all been proven that she lied, and my mom and sister were forced to stay silent as I read them all. They tried to interject repeatedly, but my dad and the counselor silenced them. My sister was now proven beyond a doubt to be a liar and a manipulator, and she just shut down and refused to say anything more to the counselor. And my mom finally apologized to me, but it was obviously a forced apology because she looked so uncomfortable doing it. I told her that her apology was very fake, and after so many years of favoritism, the damage was already done. My relationship with her never really recovered because she was convinced I was guilty no matter what she said until my sister admitted the truth, and then wanted me to pretend to be the guilty one anyways, just to protect her favorite child. But nothing went her way, so she just went back to crying all about it. When my sister went to court, my mom pleaded with the judge to go easy on my sister for charges of underage drinking and giving other underage people alcohol, as well as attempting to frame me for her crime. She also resisted arrest when the police came over and shut down the party. She was very under the influence when it happened. They kept her in a cell overnight to sober up, and then she told the police I'd been the one to provide the alcohol. My mom's begging, along with a relentless lawyer my parents hired. Eventually, they got the judge to cut a deal, provided my sister pled guilty, which she did not want to do, but her lawyer highly recommended that she take the deal to avoid jail time, because there was no other way of keeping her from getting a felony on her record. My sister's lawyer used the fact that the alcohol had not been bought that day, but rather had already been in the house long before the party happened, to lessen the charges overall. My sister's Facebook had also been completely deleted by her as soon as she was able to in order to hide the post. The judge just wanted the case to be over with, so my sister got off with a huge fine that our mom paid most of it out of her own pocket, while also ensuring that she was going to have a couple of years of probation. She was also made to get therapy too by our dad. She's never never really showed any actual remorse for what she did though, and only had animosity for me no matter how in the wrong she was. She was eventually diagnosed as a narcissist after dad made her go see a doctor. After her probation and 4 years of college were over, she decided she was going to leave home for California and never come back once she landed a good job. She currently works in an office in LA, and we have not spoken in years. My dad got her that job, and she has not shown any real appreciation for it in the slightest. Even my mom has given up on her ever coming home for the holidays and us being a family again. It tore her up inside for a few years, but now she's just bitter. She doesn't really blame me anymore, but we only seem to show indifference to each other. Now, just because my sister cut off my mom wouldn't make me the new de facto favorite. It just means my mom lost her baby and isn't getting her back. She can't leave my dad because she's too reliant on him. Despite having her own career, she would never want to be on her own again. So she's just become a shell of her former self. Things between me and my dad are still great. He's pretty much disowned my sister for what she's done and stopped caring if she'll ever talk to him again. He and my mom don't even sleep in the same bedroom anymore. She moved into the guest room about 5 years ago and has been staying there. So hopefully things work out in my life and I don't have to deal with my sister ever again. What a crazy circumstance to be stuck in. Your sister not only tried to get you to have a felony, but your mom also literally tried to force you to take the fall for this, all because they clearly have favoritism towards her. And that is not fair at all. Like, that is seriously insane to me. If I was in your shoes, there's no way I would take the fall for this in the slightest. Your sister absolutely got what she deserved. She broke into that cabinet and got the drinks for her and her friends, even though she knew she shouldn't have. And when she got caught red-handed, she tried to blame you. Like, that honestly is crazy to me. So hopefully you don't have to deal with her that much in the future, because she seriously sounds unhinged, and hopefully with her moving across the country, this will hopefully turn out to be a good thing for you and your family in the long run. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My fiance has not allowed me to have any alone time in almost 8 years, as he is constantly all over me, trying to be involved in my life no matter what. And I am literally at my wit's end, and I seriously don't know what to do. So we first started dating almost 8 years ago. I own my own house and he rented an apartment. Right off the bat, he started wanting to be together pretty regularly. Initially, I thought it was just the honeymoon phase. I attempted to set boundaries and started by trying to let me have one set day a week to myself. On that day, he would call me with plans and ideas, but then say something like, "Oh, but it's your day to yourself. I guess we can't do anything." So I changed it up to a floating day. That way, if something was going on, he wouldn't feel like it's off limits. Eventually, he would call me crying that I didn't want to see him on those days, and I would cave and let him come over because I would feel horrible. About 3 months in, I invited him to stay over one night, and he essentially never left. He was over all the time, and my ability to have alone time completely disappeared. When I would ask him to give me space, he would say that he doesn't understand why I would need alone time, or vaguely accuse me of cheating because I wanted time away from him. He would tell me that on my car ride to work, I'm alone, so that counts as alone time. If I wanted to go out with friends without him, he would get upset because he didn't understand why I would want space away from him. I would come home and he would give me the silent treatment for a while. I would take the small times when he was at work and I had a day off for my alone time. I've worked full time, so it was a rare occasion, but I needed them. But almost 3 years ago, he completely quit his job. He said he wanted to be a Twitch streamer and he wanted to pursue that. And I don't know what's going on with that because he doesn't want to speak to me about that. This meant that he was home all the time. He schedules time with his friends while I'm working and will only do things while I'm at work. If I get home and he's playing video games with his friends, he will quit the games and come spend time with me. About 2 months ago, he got a new job, but made sure to find something he could work from home to do. Although now he's complaining, and I think he will be quitting that as well. This is not what I want out of my life, but I also don't even know where to begin to get out. If I'm being completely honest, I'm a little afraid of him. He is just always very quick to anger with strangers, and he always has confrontations with others. I have animals to take care of, as well as my elderly mom now, because my dad recently passed away. I'm at my wit's end. I feel like I've completely lost myself, and I don't trust myself at all. I have felt like this isn't healthy, but he is so adamant that I'm wrong, I simply don't know what to think anymore. You need to tell him to buzz off. First off, how did this guy become your fiance? He is acting so weird and so controlling. He is basically trying to interject himself into every aspect of your life. Like literally the time to stand up for yourself was 7 years ago. I would not be able to put up with this for almost a decade. That literally would have been awful. Like why on earth does he need to spend every waking moment with you? He is clearly just trying to guilt trip you and gaslight you by saying, oh, if you're ever away from me, it must mean that you're cheating on me. Like that's crazy. You don't need that in your life. He is clearly manipulative, and that is honestly very creepy behavior. Can you even imagine having to marry that and permanently dealing with that on a daily basis? That would honestly be pretty obnoxious. So in my opinion, it's not only crazy to put up with this, but even crazier for someone to ask it of you. Like in my opinion, everybody needs their own space, and everyone needs a social life outside of their partner. And I feel that someone who doesn't give you that kind of space is ultimately having a negative impact in your life. So hopefully you can get this figured out, because what you're describing sounds incredibly exhausting and claustrophobic, and you seriously do not deserve this in the slightest. Today, I messed up by showing my English teacher a short story that I had written, and as a result, my family disowned me and has now kicked me out of the house, all because of this short story, and I'm now seriously stuck in a place where I don't know what to do. So to start things off, I'm an 18-year-old high school student who loves writing. Ever since I was little, I had enjoyed creating stories. However, I could never stick with a story and continue writing it. Recently, I had a dream, and the dream was a wonderful idea for a story. So I had begun writing it, and within a week, I had a short story of the basic idea for a much larger game or book. I yearn for much needed criticism. My writing isn't great, but it's not terrible. However, I can't successfully place my thoughts on paper with few grammatical errors. So let's begin with where I messed up. I live in a small town in Georgia of about 200 people. The town is super religious, and my story was rather graphic. The story in and of itself was a nice love story between two male soldiers set in a post-nuclear apocalyptic setting. The story doesn't have anything sketchy or anything like that, and was simply a love story that happened to be between two men. But the zombies and their descriptions were very graphic. I had finished the short story, and I asked my English teacher for some much-needed feedback. I sent it to her in a Google Doc, and she said she would read it over the break. Well, we come back over break, and my English teacher called my parents and asked for them to come in for a talk. Today, I waited after school for my parents, and they came to the school to talk to my teachers. My parents are, by the way, as you probably can guess, super duper religious, and I was afraid they would be angry due to the graphic content. My English teacher was very upset about the contents of the book, not because of the zombies that got slaughtered, but because of the ungodly relationship, as they described it, between the two main characters. My English teacher would go on to read the story aloud, which not only made me cringe because who actually likes to hear their own writing, but my parents grew very angry with what I thought was a very sweet love story. 4 hours later, my parents have kicked me out of their house. They accused me of being gay when in reality I'm not. I just thought writing a love story between two men would be interesting enough because it's something I could never experience. Currently, I'm staying with a friend and I don't know what I'm gonna do. I might just couch hop until I can get off to college in September. On Facebook, I am getting absolutely blasted by everybody, especially our church group, which I did rather like. This is all so frustrating and I seriously don't know what to do. That is an awful situation. And seriously, your parents suck. Like they are awful parents. And that English teacher also sucks. They literally kicked you out of the house for something that isn't real. This was a fictional story. It didn't happen and it's not real. Regardless of your religious orientation or however you feel about God or anything like that, to kick your kid out of their house for something they wrote down that is not only real but also entirely fictional is, in my opinion, so gross and disgusting. Like, I just can't imagine you doing that to your own child. I mean, how can you honestly profess that you follow any religious deity and claim to be someone who loves one another and tries to help other people around you and be charitable and all that other stuff, while also in the same breath kicking out your child simply because you're making assumptions about them? And this is all literally over a short, fictitious story that they wrote just for the heck of it. Like, I seriously can't imagine you sucking that much as a parent to do that to your own child. So to the original poster, I am seriously so sorry that you're dealing with this. Your parents are being ridiculous, and hopefully when you go off to college, you don't have to deal with them. So hopefully things work out and you're able to find some kind of solution. An entitled Karen makes a scene in Barnes & Noble, literally screaming about the outrageous prices, demanding that the hourly worker she was screaming at call up corporate and get something done about this. And this experience gave me some serious secondhand embarrassment. Here's what happened. So my husband and I sometimes love to go do an impromptu date to Barnes & Noble where we will go get breakfast and then then go to the store and wander around. He usually heads to the manga section, and I roam around fiction and fantasy. And usually we end up walking out with a handful of new books. It is super fun, and we get to show each other what we like and get ideas for future gifts and whatnot. Anywho, we were there this past Saturday and had taken a specifically long time picking out books, so we were finally ready to leave and go home. Fast forward to us standing in line, and it's great. There's only one person in front of us and one person checking out, and this is the entitled Karen of the story. This woman starts complaining about the price of every single thing as it's scanned at the register, going so far to say the teenager working absolutely must pass it on to corporate about how ridiculously expensive prices are and how it makes her not want to go there anymore. The teenager keeps trying to get her to finish checking out, but she keeps getting louder. At one point, she actually turned around to look at other people in line, and I guess she was trying to get some kind of support or something. I'm just wishing she would hurry up and stop making a scene. The kid working finally asked her if she needs a bag for 10 cents, and she flips out. It's important to note that in our state, they made it mandatory for stores to start charging for plastic bags and will ban them permanently in the next couple of years. So this shouldn't be a surprise to her at this point, since it's been in effect for about 3 months. She says to this poor worker, "Now you want to charge me for a bag? This is outrageous. You need to talk to your corporate office and do something about this." The cashier, who is also my hero, literally did not react at all to her screaming at him and was just like, "Okay, have a nice day." Anyways, I almost cheered when she finally left the store. Like, if you don't want to pay that price, just leave and don't shop there. You screaming at the top of your lungs at an hourly teenager and holding the line up isn't going to change anything, and you aren't getting any support from anyone by acting like a fool. I really can't stand when people act like this in public. They make a scene, they're trying to make some kind of weird point, and then they look around like, "Ooh, who has my back? Who's gonna support me in this weird outburst I'm currently conducting?" Like, seriously, get over yourself. The employee that you're yelling at literally cannot change the prices, and they cannot change the fact that it's gonna cost 10 cents to get a bag. Now, for me personally, I think charging 10 cents for a bag is really dumb, but I'm not about to start screaming at some hourly worker and demanding that they do something about this. Like, what are they gonna do? Call up corporate and be like, "You better stop doing this right now." Like, that's honestly ridiculous, and this entitled Karen was completely out of line. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.